Let's go. Also be live.
You're live. Hello. Welcome to Behind the Scenes of AV Rant. This is a live recording session, so you are just seeing our live, whatever feed, Skype thingy. There's bound to be technical issues because there almost always are, but that's the way it goes. That's why this is called Behind the Scenes and not the finished version. The finished version usually goes up on Thursday, and it has time in the show notes to look up where the questions are. So that's my preamble. And
I should have had some caffeine.
Can start whenever
this is not going to end well for me. I should have had some caffeine about 2 hours ago to sort of like...
Yeah. All right.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with...
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I should have cleaned my glasses before we started, and Tom should have had some coffee, but here we are on a Tuesday evening.
What is it about my face that immediately starts itching the second we start recording this thing? I swear.
Nervousness.
It's not nervous.
I'm sure after 686 previous episodes, you're just all a Twitter.
My stomach's a flutter.
That's right.
I vomit before every podcast because I'm so nervous.
If you didn't, then your heart's not in it anymore. That's how you know.
Rob, we have a problem.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Welcome to AV Rant. This is the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You can go to www.avrant.com. Leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/AVRant YouTube.com/AVRant to see our videos and not comment because YouTube is awful.
I won't let you.
Call them like you see them. Let's see here. Contact us directly, Rob at AVRant.com. His Twitter is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at AVRant.com. My Twitter is at AVRant_Tom. And I set up 90% of the SVS speakers. I set up everything but the stuff I had to attach to the ceiling.
Let's see, 90% out of 9. That's not a whole number, but
no,
it's pretty close.
So I got, was it just 9? No, 7, 8,
yeah,
9. Yes, there's 9. Yeah, you're right.
Because you already had 2 previously.
So, first impressions, if people are interested in that. So, as a reminder, I've got Ultras up front. The 3 front speakers are Ultras. All the rest of the speakers on the floor level are the not bookshelf, satellites, which are smallish. I love them because of their size, but I wouldn't call them small. I would call them smallish. And then I got 2 more prime elevation speakers for my top middles that I haven't installed yet because didn't want to.
Yeah. Well, it also means taking down the birds, which, I mean, it's not super difficult, but it's not nothing. It's on
3
your ceiling,
screws.
So,
it's 3 screws and a loosening of a Allen wrench thing because the speakers are completely tilted so that they're facing.
I'll be
kind
of interested to hear what the difference is between having birds that were right on the ceiling aiming straight down versus, are you putting your prime elevations high on your sides and angled down, or are you going to mount them to your ceiling?
So I think my couch is pushed all the way up to one wall. So the side that's on the one wall, I'm thinking I'm going to put it on the ceiling as close to the wall as I can because that makes the angle shallower.
So on the ceiling, but kind of angled in a little bit is how the angle would work on a prime elevation. All right.
Yeah. And the other one, I thought, there's a walkway and like a doorway. I thought I might put it above the door in a regular orientation to see. Because that would kind of whatever. So clear. I'm going from the Veris Grand generation 1, first generation Veris Grand speakers. I don't know how much they've changed look-wise since.
Looks-wise, not very much. Those are Aperion audio, by the way, for people who might not know. The Veris Grands are from Aperion. And looks-wise, they're about the same, but they've changed the drivers and the crossover twice now. They're on to version 3 at this point.
Right. So one of the reasons why I wanted to switch speakers in general is because I was sick of tower speakers and I was mad at them. Only in this room have I had a problem with them, but in this room I had a problem getting in the image. I've talked about it before and I've kind of got it sorted out and everything was fine. But I just didn't want tower speakers. I'm just sick of tower speakers. Now, if you're going on pure aesthetics, the Aperion hands down are better looking than
Okay.
I've got the ash. They told me, do you want the gloss black or the ash? I'm like, I don't care.
Mm.
Don't care what they look like. I don't care. So the ash black is just like the vinyl wrap or whatever
Yeah.
it is, and there's the gloss black that you can get. Some people care one way or the other, but shape wise. The
Mm-hmm.
Veris are just a better looking speaker. They got
Okay.
rounded corners, the front, the center channel has like these two like they're sort of like door stops but curved. So when you
Right.
put the curved speaker on the curved door stop, you can angle it
Yeah.
perfectly the way you
Almost
want.
little
And
cradles, almost. Yeah.
yeah, but they look like door stops because
Mm.
they're separate. There's another thing. Uh, I would describe the all of the SBS speakers as mildly trapezoidal. They're
Yeah,
slightly
there's a
smaller at the
little bit
top.
of like beveling on some of the corners, so it's not a full 90-degree corner on the front. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so they're a little bit narrow in the top, and then they have usually a little bit of the front where the front corner would be is got a cutoff on it,
Mm-hmm.
an angle, sort of, whatever. So, but basically a box. The center channel is basically a box.
Mm-hmm.
It has a little bit of that, and you can't aim it in any way, not without actually buying doorstops, one supposes. I did install our loudspeaker decoupling risers
Okay.
on all of these speakers.
Nice.
So the downside, by the way, for $299.99, you can get some yourself from us. The downside, I will tell you right now, is they're a little slippery.
As mouse pads are
as
wont to
mouse pads
be.
are
That's
wont to
that's what we're
be.
talking about, by the way, because it's been a long time since we've talked about the AV Rant speaker decoupling pads, which are of course mouse pads.
They're
That is
just
what
mouse
they are.
pads.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little slippery, so
Mm.
I'm a little concerned about that part of it. I might
Mm.
uninstall them and reinstall the little rubber feet that come with the
Yeah.
stands, and just use those instead. But overall, as far as imaging goes, and soundstage and stuff like that, setting these things up was easy. I did the Odyssey. Odyssey decided one of my speakers was wired out of phase. I didn't
Yep.
think it was, but maybe it was. So
Probably
I
not.
I switched the wires and it said it was fine. I reran
Oh.
it, said it was fine. I reran it, still said it was fine. So I'm like, okay.
Oh, no,
So
maybe
I
so.
wasn't convinced. I
Mm.
wasn't convinced. So I put on a 2-channel song that I know has a left-right pan, and if you're out of phase,
Mm-hmm.
that ain't gonna happen.
That's right.
Not even a little bit. So it totally happened. And in fact, not only that, these were the ultras up front just imaged like a gangbusters. It was
Oh,
crazy.
nice.
They
Oh,
were.
so instantaneously you are happier with the
I
results here.
I am instantaneously happy. Not only that, I didn't even really. I just kind of like, I put my hand on top and kind of saw like where it was generally
Right,
pointed
right.
at, and I was like,
Eyeballed it.
that looks like it's about the side of the couch. And this, I'm very happy with that.
Awesome.
The whole Phantom Center was beautiful, dead on, no problems whatsoever. I could tweak it a little bit. I think I could probably play with it a little bit, and I will eventually. But really happy, really happy. They're
Great.
well boxed. They had all the stuff that you're looking for. So I mean, I don't really remember how much these speakers are for the bookshelves. Do you know how much they are?
Bookshelves. Let's see. The bookshelves I think are 1,000 for the pair. Is that? Am I in the ballpark there? I think they're 1,000 for the pair for the
I'm
bookshelf.
clicking on them right now.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So I should mention the SVS Ultras. The finish on those actually is real wood. So
Is it really?
Yep. Yep. The black oak on the Ultras is real wood. On the Primes, I don't think it's real wood. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they're
$500
$500 a pop.
$500 each, so $1,000 a pair. Yeah. Okay.
Oh wait, is it different for the black oak veneer? No.
No,
they're the same all the way around. There's a white gloss as well. The tweeters have all got covers over the top of them, little grills, which is for those of you that are concerned about such things. That's always kind of nice. They all come with grill, covers and stuff if you want to put them on.
regular speaker grill covers.
Yeah. I'm putting mine on just because of the dog more than anything.
Right.
Whatever. So yeah, I'm real happy. So far, I'm extremely happy with them.
Great.
So my family hasn't noticed at all.
Nope.
Because why would they?
Yeah.
I won't call this the review. I'll call this the preview.
All right. This is
So
impressions. First impressions.
First impression. This is
First
literally
look.
I set them up. I stuck in the CD. I switched it. Did the thing that Rob says. You press the game thing until it gives you stereo. And just listen to that imaging. I was getting sounds from 360 degrees of me. I mean, all the way
Sweet.
around the back of my head. And I was not listening to. I was listening to something that was made to do that. So it was very nice.
Any initial impression of going to monopole direct firing surround speakers versus you used to be using bipoles?
Not off the top of my head, but the
Hmm.
thing that's nice is because these are so physically smaller that
Right.
and I'm talking about the satellites now. Physically smaller. I've got shelves that were big enough to
Yeah.
to put an entire full-fledged bookshelf on, like a
Hmm.
heavy bookshelf if I wanted to. So my surround backs, which are on one big long shelf, I was able to separate them out. So I'm getting
Mm.
probably a good foot
Hmm.
additional between them for my surround backs, and then my surrounds I'm actually able to bring them forward about 3 or 4 inches because they're so much smaller than the
Yeah.
units that they replaced. Um, yeah, so I'm extremely happy with all of that. So it's just a matter of getting these things sort of dialed in and making sure
Yeah.
that everything. But it all looked really good as far as uh, the measurements and stuff
Hmm.
like that right off the bat all looked really good. So and it sounds pretty good. So I stuck in the 2 channel thing so I could hear the pan and make sure that I was actually out of phase, and it had fixed it. And then I took and got the DVD, the Blu-ray, Ultra HD, whatever it is, the one that the it's got to be Ultra HD, the new mix of Jurassic Park
Yeah,
to hear
that'd be
the
Ultra
beginning of
HD
that.
then. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and that was of course phenomenal. So that sounded great. But I'm gonna have to spend a little bit more time with it. I am planning on watching a lot of horror movies coming up, and
Hmm.
horror movies more than anything love to use surrounds and surround
Oh,
back.
they sure do. Yes.
So I've got Us, which I haven't watched yet,
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good.
which is supposed to be pretty good. And I just started watching Lock and Key on Netflix,
Hmm.
which I'm not really sure if that's an Atmos or anything, but whatever. That seems to be all right now. I'm at the end of the first episode, and it just got real freaky. So anything that bills itself as having Lovecraftian overtones has got my attention. I'm a huge Lovecraft fan, even though he was super racist. But
Hmm.
let's talk about our listeners of the week as
Let's
we go
shall.
on to this podcast. So to become a listener of the week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to patreon.com/AVRant podcast and signing up. This is a subscription service where you subscribe to content creators of your choice. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month to your favorite content creator, or as much as you want on top of that. So $1 is the minimum. So we have 108 people that have done that, and we thank all 108 of you. Thank you very much, gentlemen and ladies.
Indeed. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. And thanks so much to our 108 patrons over there.
And if you can support us financially, feel free to support us in any way you can think of. One of the ways that you can think of doing it. I haven't said this in a while, but if you leave us a review someplace, that'd be super.
Oh, yeah.
iTunes is always a good place for that, but there's
Mhm.
other places. I don't know where. I'm sure. But wherever you listen to us at, leave us a review and let us know, and we'll mention you. But Chris wanted to let us know that he talked us up to SVS after, I guess, his purchase. I suppose
Yep.
he must have purchased
There
something.
was a purchase.
So thank you, Chris, for talking us up to SVS.
Definitely, Chris. Thanks so much for talking us up like that. Did want to mention, got some stuff that will definitely be listeners of the week next week, but I cut everything off on Sunday nights, so everything that happened later than Sunday night, you'll be mentioned next week. Please don't worry.
So one thing I will mention about last thing about the Ultra Bookshelf speakers is they're quite tall. So
Mhm.
Rob and I last week after the podcast, we started talking about the height of speakers, the stands I should get.
Yeah.
And, rather than taking the speakers out of the boxes and measuring everything and being super pedantic about it, we sort of just guesstimated where the tweeter would be.
I mean, we
And
looked up the
realized
dimension of how tall the speaker
yeah, but
is.
we were like kind of eyeballed it,
Yeah.
right? So, and I'm like, and I got a tape measure, and I kind of went, oh, I'm sitting about like this, so I'm
Mhm.
probably about this, and yeah, that's probably about right. So we went to I went to Santa's. Actually, I think I went to Amazon, but
Yeah.
anyways, I looked at Santa's speakers. Their Steel series, which is my favorite series that they have. It's black, industrial, and functional. They're not the easiest speaker stand to put together, but you do it once, and
That's fair.
once if you are unlike me and actually read the instructions, it'll go much better for you than it did for me, because I always put them together and go, this can't possibly be right, and then I go and read the instructions. So yeah, but they went together pretty easily. But 22 inches is what I ordered,
Yes.
uh, kind of guesstimating where the tweeter would be.
Mhm.
When I am seated on my couch, they are a little low.
Oh, okay.
Tweeter is a little low,
Oh.
but when I am reclined, they are
Mm.
perfect.
Okay.
So I will say, as much as I would love to just attribute every bit of differences I'm hearing between the Pyrian and the
Mm.
SVS to just pure SVS quality differences. I think the fact that the tweeter is lower is at least partially responsible for how
Could
much
be.
more I'm liking the
I
imaging.
mean, there shouldn't be anything blocking the sound from going upward from the tweeter because there's nothing above the tweeter on the SVS
Right.
bookshelf speaker. And it should actually be closer in height to where your center speaker tweeter is because your center speaker is below your screen. So
Right.
everything is more in line.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that going on too, but we'll see when I get a chance to actually blow some movies out of this place. We'll hear some more. We'll be hearing about these SBS speakers for the foreseeable future. So lock in, I guess, or what is it? Strap in. That's what it is. All right, in the news here, LG Display is still the only manufacturer of large OLED panels, and now their new factory in China is months behind schedule, and God knows how long it's going to be now that COVID-19
Well, that's
is
part of this.
the thing. Yeah. The line that was supposed to be up and running in October 2019 has not produced a single OLED panel yet. The COVID-19 outbreak is only further delaying things, so there's a good chance those anticipated 48-inch OLEDs might not show up until late this year, if at all, and we shouldn't expect large price drops this year for OLED TVs. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys and all of our listeners and stuff about this whole COVID-19 thing. All right, this is my uneducated and yes, if you're a medical professional, feel free to send me an angry email, and I'll put it in the same place I put all the rest of them. But I will read it before I do so. I was at the supermarket today, and there's a lady that walked in with a face mask, and I was just like, really?
Well, that never does anything for a virus, but okay.
Yeah, I just get irritated because there's real professionals out there who really need a lot of these supplies, and like Costco's completely sold out of of hand sanitizer and everything else. I'm like, if you spent 5 seconds online, you would see that COVID-19, while it is dangerous and extremely contagious, for most of us, it's going to be a couple of bad days or a couple of bad weeks, and then we're going to be okay.
81% of confirmed cases are either no symptoms or very mild symptoms that you couldn't tell apart from a cold, to be honest. So, yeah. But for the people for
respiratory thing, where who knows? This is Florida. There's a lot of very sick people.
The wearing of the little face mask, like the kind that like your dentist would wear, which is not a filter or anything like that.
No,
that is supposed to be for the people who are sick, so that if they do cough, their droplets don't go spraying out into the air. If you are not sick, it is not going to prevent you from getting sick at all. So
I mean, if you are out there and you're worried about that, all I ask is that you do a little research before you go out there and try to buy every face mask that you can get your hands on. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. If you do that, then whatever.
Don't worry, in another 2 to 3 years after this has died away, there'll be another contagion going around because the news loves to spread the propaganda and they love to freak everybody out, and the sales go crazy for a little while and the stock market goes insane and people short the market and make a ton of money, and then the market comes back and they make a ton of money. And that's why we keep having these things, because a lot fewer people have this than the flu, and the flu kills more people. So, yeah.
Scott Wilkinson wrote an article for Tech Hive about a recent double-blind test to try and determine if 8K resolution truly looks better than 4K resolution video. 139 participants viewed 4K and 8K clips from either 5 feet or 9 feet away on an 88-inch 8K OLED, 5 feet away from an 88-inch.
They're trying to give you your best shot of seeing this.
I'm saying that's pretty freaking close. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, some were 9 feet away.
The clips were labeled A and B, but sometimes A and B were actually identical to act as a control. Participants rated the A and the B clips on a 7-point scale to say whether A or B looked better or the same. 7-point scale. Why do you need 2 points? You need 3 points.
You need 3 points.
Different. Which one is the one you like that you think looks best, or neither?
Which ultimately is what they crunched it down to. But they have a scale that went from much better, better, somewhat better, same, somewhat better the other side, better the other side, much better the other side. Yeah. Anyway, that's what they did. But they crunched it down to 3 points anyway.
That's all you needed was 3 points. In the end, so drum roll please, most of the time the response was that they looked the same. Every clip had a fair number of responses that the 4K version looked better than the 8K version, but the 8K looking better than 4K was the second most popular response. One particular clip, which was nature footage shot on a native 8K camera by Stacey Spears. I'm sure that's somebody famous. I don't know who it is.
Spears and Munsell. That's the Spears from Spears and Munsell.
Yeah. Was the only one to get more 8K looks better than 4K responses than 8K and 4K look the same. So there's certainly no overwhelming response of 8K consistently looking better, even amongst participants with 2010 vision sitting only 5 feet away. So,
Yeah.
you know, this just backs up what I've been saying for ever since 4K came out, which is we don't need it. We certainly don't need 8K. We didn't need 4K. We don't need 8K, and you know, the reality is if you are super careful about how you film everything, and you film it in a precise way with all the best gear and everything else, and you play it back in the precise way, whatever. Yes, you'll be able to tell the difference. That's what I took from this. That one 8K one got a little bit more consistent.
Well, even there, even in that one, the majority of responses is the combination of 4K looked better and they looked the same. Overall, more people said one of those two answers than 8K looked the same. Now, individually, out of those three possibilities, 8K looked better was the one that got the most in that one clip.
Right.
In all other clips, I wanted to see they didn't break out the results, at least in the report. They didn't break out the results of when A and B were actually the exact same clip, because that's the one I wanted to see how many people were like, oh, A is clearly better than B, or B is clearly better than A. It's like, no, we know for a fact these were identical, the same clip. I wanted to see that report.
So, if this doesn't convince you that all these numbers, that it's just all BS, then I don't know what will. I mean, it's not that these things aren't measured, and this long ways goes towards our same argument we have about amplifiers and DACs and everything else. It's like, yes, numerically,
sure,
you can objectively, this one is better than this one. You will not tell the difference, and that's where we are with video right now with 8K and 4K. Now, HDR is not the same thing. We're not talking about the same thing, but with just pure pixels, we're at the point where it makes no difference. We can't see it.
Very much diminishing returns at this point. Yes.
Stop shoving it down our throats. I mean, who's sitting 5 feet away from the 80-inch display? Come on, no one's sitting 5 feet away from the 80-inch display.
Seems uncommon to me.
Yeah. Yes. So some comments here. John just wanted to let us know that our recommendation first led him to getting a pair of SVS PB3000 subs for his irregularly shaped open concept room. He immediately said bravo to that upgrade. So good. But he was using the sub 1 and sub 2 outputs on his Yamaha receiver that treated them individually, so he added a Y splitter and gave Rob's 12-step guide a try. In his setup, he says the results was a definite improvement, so he wanted to say thanks. It didn't make sense to him until we explained how multiple subwoofers plus the room are all acting as a single bass entity. But now he's heard it for himself, and so he's happy that we helped make his home theater more fun and satisfying. So
hooray!
Good. Yay!
Yes, good job.
I have level matched my subs on a Y splitter, and first they said it was too quiet, and they said it was too loud, and I told it to go screw itself, and I ran Odyssey anyways, and it ran it at -9. So I'm like, that's a little, they were a little hot, but I mean, I know the bottom is -12, so you still had some room there, so I'm fine, just leaving me alone. Way too lazy to run it again. Carl wanted to let everyone know about the huge amount of free, often obscure content available at archive.org's VHS Vault. Not everything that was on VHS made its way to DVD, so just like their efforts to archive internet web pages and books, archive.org is hosting digitized versions of VHS recordings, and they're freely available for anyone to view. What could possibly be on there that I'd want to see that I can't get in another format is what I'm wondering.
Well, it's free. You can just stream it there, like YouTube. I mean, right away, I didn't scroll down very far, but like the entire series of MASH is on there. I assume that is available on DVD, but whatever. Right. They put it on there, and like I think all of Tiny Toons is on there. So okay, It doesn't seem to be in any kind of order. I think it's in the order in which it was uploaded, because it's certainly not alphabetical.
Yay!
And there's like exercise videos and stuff on there. Like you want to go back to those old VHS exercise tapes.
Jazzercise.
They're making an archive of it. Good on them. Yeah.
Somebody's got to do that, I suppose. Oh, I figured out I remember I was complaining about my DVD player having a weird aspect ratio or whatever. Yeah, it was the projector.
Okay.
It was an anamorphic something, and anything that came out that was not 16:9 or
So it
already
was
had it.
squishing everything from left to right.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
squishing stuff. So yeah, I got that
Expecting you
fixed.
to have a lens in front of it.
Once I turned on the receiver and had Odyssey engaged, and I couldn't see the choices, I was like, okay, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the DVD player, so I figured it out. Just press the aspect ratio button on my remote, and there I was.
That did it.
DJ on Twitter, naturally, our comments last week regarding screen masking and how many times you'll actually end up using it did not line up with everyone's personal experience. And here comes that guy. DJ says he always puts up his manual masking panels whenever he's watching a 2.35:1 movie. He even timed himself, and it only takes him 45 seconds. So it's worth it to him for that perceived boost in contrast. There's always one. And DJ, honestly, dude, I know that I knew that you were there. I knew that you were out there. I knew that
he was very
good
natured about it. He wasn't doing it as a seriously upset or anything like that. No. Very good natured about it, but
yes,
fair enough.
You're absolutely right. There, it's always there's people that this is going to be important enough to, but there's so many more of us who get that feature on our car that we thought was so important and then never ever use it. And I'm guilty of that 1,000 times over. So when I was giving that advice, I was giving it to myself as much as I was giving it to anybody else. Let's get on to the questions here. John's room is 12 feet wide and 21 feet long overall. But at the front of his room, there's a soffit that covers a stairway going upstairs. And then there are vertical bulkheads on the left and right sides. It basically makes a frame for the first 3 feet at the front of his room, or it's like a large closet without doors, which is exactly what it looks like.
Yes.
Now, he has put his TV inside here. It looks like there might be 2 TVs in there. Is that 2 TVs?
No, that's a panel. That's an acoustic panel for his center speaker.
So he has put as many acoustic panels in here as he can possibly fit because they're everywhere. And then there's the TV in there, and then there's a little cabinet, and then his speakers are on stands, which are almost outside of this area, or maybe flush with the front of it.
Those are just towers. Yeah, and
those are towers. Oh, okay.
Ever so slightly proud of the frame type of thing that's around here, but more or less right in line with the edges of the where the doors would go if this were a closet. Think of it that way.
Right. So he asks, if he goes upstairs and looks in the space under the stairway, it appears as though the vertical bulkheads aren't actually load bearing. Hey, let's just take a sledgehammer to it. Should be fine. Don't to put down the hammer, okay? Because that was tongue in cheek, is how we call that. He's put his front speakers of his 84-inch LCD TV in front of the sort of alcove, along with several 2-inch absorption panels. He's never really liked the look, and I don't blame you, dude. That looks kind of weird. And he doesn't like how it constrains his front, left, and right speaker placement options. His primary seat is about 12 feet from the physical front wall where his TV is mounted. A, should he look into a hiring contract to remove the vertical bulkheads? If it can be done, it would open up the front of his room, which he has always wished he could do. Can I keep reading? Or because I kind of feel like my answer is going to answer like everything.
Okay. On this. All right. Sure. Let's go.
Because I mean, first of all, you're more than welcome to talk to a contractor to see if that's something.
Sure. I have zero problem with someone coming in and examining it. I am assuming that, like, the way he described it, I think that if you look at like the left-hand side, because I think that's the way he said the stairs were going up, was from like left to right.
Yeah.
If you look at the left-hand side, I think if you were to take out the vertical bulkhead on the left-hand side, there's probably like a little bit of the stairs on the angle that's coming through there, and I suspect that's why they put that in and then just put the one on the other side just to equal the look. Or maybe somebody planned this to be a closet at some point and they just never installed the doors. It could just be that. Right. But yeah, I mean, having it examined by a contractor, sure. I wouldn't tell them to knock it down until it's been properly examined.
I would never have installed this TV on this back wall. I would have taken that piece of furniture or some other piece of furniture. I would have put it in front of, like as if there were a door there, as if that were that doorway was actually a full wall.
Right.
Okay. I would have put all that stuff in front of there, including your speakers, which makes your speakers a little wide. Now there is a door on the right, could make this a little tight on that side. Could be. I don't know if that's part of your issue, but I would have put some sort of screen or masking material or just anything, to cover this doorway, like a, you could literally just take like speaker grill cloth and hang it. I mean, you would.
Or you
would
could
not
just put curtains. Curtains
just put
could go
curtains
across there. Yeah.
I would put all my gear and every bit of
Right.
insulation I could find
Back
into
there.
that alcove back there, and this TV would be on the stand, and the speakers would be in front of all this thing, and I would pretend that wasn't there.
Yeah, because you could get one of those 3-in-1 TV stands
Yeah,
so that it, because it looks like he wants his TV a bit higher than just the
right.
way its own foot would work on a normal TV's pedestal. But yeah, you get one of those 3-in-1 TV stands with the stalk that comes up on the back and holds your TV just like a wall mount. And then you can put the TV anywhere you want, anywhere that stand can stand.
Yeah, and he's sitting 12 feet away from an 80-inch display. Well, I wouldn't want to sit, or
84.
84-inch.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sit 5 feet away from it. I certainly don't
But
want
now
to
you
sit
could be
12
9 feet away from it, and
Yeah.
that'd be very nice. Yeah.
Then 9 feet would be. I think that fixes a lot of
Yeah.
all the rest of his
Everything.
issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. I'd move everything out of this closet and just put up a curtain or something. So, second question: if the vertical bulkheads have to stay, what do we think about hanging a motorized projection screen in the opening? Man, I wouldn't. I would put it in front of the opening. I wouldn't put it in the opening. That's for sure. I wouldn't try to make it like framed. I just have it. Pretend this thing doesn't exist. Just put a curtain back there.
Actually, I think that's like all of it, because I mean, he was saying like if he does put the motorized screen like either in the opening or just in front of the opening, now he's only 9 feet away from a much bigger screen. I'm like, if you're 9 feet away from your 84-inch, you're like exactly where you want to be. So I think the only thing you need to buy is a 3-in-1 TV stand.
Yeah.
And you're done. You got everything you wanted just with a TV stand. I think that's the solution. Yeah. So that'll allow you to bring your front, left, and right speakers forward, which he was asking about. And yeah, it takes care of all the screen size concerns. You can keep the lights on like you wanted to do. TV stand is the solution. We win.
This is like a $300, like
Yeah.
if you buy a real nice one
A
from
real nice
Sanus
one,
or something like that, $200-300. Bob's your uncle.
I like a company called Z-Line. They make very decent and affordable, but nice looking and very functional and very stable 3-in-1 TV stands.
Sounds good. RD. 2 weeks ago, Rob tackled. That must have been the solo week. Sorry.
Yeah.
Rob tackled RD's question about potentially replacing his NXG brand in-wall speakers, which RD described as sounding not terrible, which is what we're going for. It's like sometimes how I describe my children. Fortunately. Let's say, Rob, you and I after this podcast have to have a little heart-to-heart, because I'm like pulling my hair out over here about my kids. I'm so freaking stressed. It's not even funny. But and those of you who have children, and some of them are teenagers, and you're not like shaking your head going, been there. Yep, been there. If you have younger children, like, oh, my kids are beautiful. They're going to be wonderful their entire lives. Yeah. I'll be here for you when they hit 16.
Just watch Big Mouth. That hormone monster is going to kick in.
Oh my God, I love that show so much. It's so terrible. It is so funny. All right. Described his speakers as not terrible. Rob stressed that for RD setup, if he was going to stick with in-wall front speakers, that he'd want speakers with backer boxes. RD ended up finding an installer who was selling off some GTL Sound Labs in-walls. Never heard of them. In-wall speakers that normally go for $1,200 a piece. I guess they must be good. I guess. They're already a sealed design with full back enclosure, so RD is happy with that find. He's using a Denon X3600H receiver. It's rated 105 watts per channel. The GTL speakers are spec'd to handle 175 watts. How big is this room? He hasn't told us. Okay.
It's it's very open and all that, but he's not sitting super far away. Yeah.
Okay. RD was going to need at least 2 channels of external amplifications to expand his to his desired 7.2.4 configuration. So do we think he should get 3 channels to power his front 3 speakers instead? He's about 10 to 11 feet away from his front wall, but it's a very large, wide open room. Outlaw Audio selling 3 of their Model 2200 mono blocks for $800. That's a limited time special. That's less than the Monolith or Emotiva 3-channel model. Should he hop on that Outlaw deal? You're going to hate me. Because I'm gonna say no, but because I have been down the rabbit hole of amplifiers. Yes. I have been down it so many times, and it starts so simply. It starts with Dayton Audio, and you're like, for $100, I can get 2 channels, and I'm done. But I don't really want just 50 watts per channel on my front speakers. So I mean, if I'm going to buy 2, I might as well buy 3. But I don't want 50 watts. I want at least 100. So what can I? Well, maybe I look. Look, there's this deal over here. You know what I should get? I should get a 7 channel. I might. Well, if I'm going to do 3, I might as well do 5. If I'm going to do 5, I might as well do 7. So I'm going to get a 7 channel amp for the bottom. And I mean, the Emotivas are great, but the monolith is only a couple $100 more. And look at the build quality. That's made by ATI. That's
is.
All right. Just get the 2-channel amp for your top middles and just call it a day. That's kind of what I'm going to say. I'm sorry.
I mean, you really don't need the 3 mono blocks when you're only 10 to 11 feet away. And I looked up the specs on those new in-wall speakers that you have, and they're entirely normal efficiency. I think they're 89 dB per 1 watt, and they're 8 ohm speakers. Like, there's absolutely no problem with your X3600 powering those. We're not talking about bass, where you have to pressurize the entire open space. We're talking about the direct path from the speaker to you, which is only about 11 feet. So objectively, you don't need it. The difference between 105 watts and 175 watts is, let's see, about 2 decibels. So if you had 200 watt amplifiers, they could theoretically make those speakers play 3 decibels louder than the Denon can, sort of maxed out. But yeah, you're not going to need that. That's objectively not what you need. Now, I would go as far as to say that if you went and got Outlaw's Model 5000, which is a 5-channel amplifier, but it's only $650, that I'm not gonna be mad at that. You power your 5 speakers, you take even more load off of your Denon. That I could kind of get behind. That's as far as I will go.
I'm never gonna get mad at anybody for buying the amplifier.
That's right.
Because amplifier is one of the few pieces of gear that you can buy that almost never goes away. Almost never breaks. This is coming from a man who's actually had an amplifier break on them, which irritated me. But they almost never break, and they last kind of forever. So it's one of the few pieces of gear that you can kind of just impulse buy, and you can use it for just about ever if you really want to. That being said, you don't need it. You don't need any of it. You just need the 2 channels. Yeah.
But if you're gonna do it, I say 650 is the most you should spend on a Model 5000.
All right. Dan has gotten used to looking at some pretty expensive home theater gear. When it came to subwoofers, he went to some pretty high-end installers and dealers, and he was looking at options like Velodyne's Digital Drive Plus series, which is DD Plus, REL, and JL Audio. He wound up bringing home a pair of JL Audio Fathom subs, which are like, what, $5,000 a pair, a piece? I mean,
I think that's the smallest one starts about there. And
so
I don't
Fathom,
even. The Fathoms are the F. So they've got the
Gothams, which are the big ones, right?
And then Fathoms. The Gotham is the very top one. That's the dual driver.
No, the E's are $1,000 each. I know that. The E's are $1,000, unless they've gone up. So I think the Fathoms were 5,000 and the Gothams were 10. But I might be wrong.
I don't remember exactly. But anyway, they are not cheap. We know they are not cheap.
Anyways, they might be double or triple what I just said. So whatever. We don't know. So he ended up bringing home some JL Audio Fathom subs, but they are still in the audition phase, and he isn't committing to buy them outright just yet. Listening to us, naturally, he's heard us recommend SVS, but SVS doesn't have any offerings at this same sort of prices. That's why we recommend them. But let's just continue on. Hey, by the way, before we even say anything else, I would love to have some JL Audio Fathom subs.
I'm not angry at anybody going, hey, these Fathoms sound really darn good. And look at
those are some
how compact they are.
Subs.
Yeah,
they're tiny. Yeah, you're not paying for nothing. Like there's some subs I feel like you're just paying for, looks or name or whatever. Nah. Not with JL Audio. You're paying for something. I mean, yeah, you're getting a little bit of name and a little bit of looks, but there is an amplifier and a driver in there that is seriously beefy. So I had no problem with that. So what has stood out to him with the JL Audio Fathom subs is their transient response. Things sound absolutely flawless and real. There's no overhang at all, and something like a kick drum has an uncanny realism to it. Now that he's never really heard in his home system before. We have no idea what he had before. He's willing to pay the price for the JL Audio subs, but now that he's heard this level of performance, he wouldn't want anything less. But is there any chance that something from SVS could equal this level of performance? To him, the price savings seems almost too good to be true. So would we say this is the case? too good to be true. No, I wouldn't say it was too good to be true.
No, definitely not that. I think there's a very simple solution to this, which
I mean, FCS has free shipping both ways.
Both ways.
That's the true answer, but I think we should still give our opinion.
Oh well, I mean, I'm like, here's what I think you should do. I think you should stick with sealed because if you're all about the tight transient response, there is some mechanical benefit to a sealed enclosure when it comes to tight transient response. That is just the way it is. So I would stick with sealed, but I would go ahead, because of the type of price range that you're willing to consider, and get SVS's flagship. Get an SB16 Ultra, the sealed box 16 Ultra. Get two of them, because if they don't equal up to your Fathoms, or for whatever reason you still prefer the Fathoms, you send them back to SVS. You are not out a penny. They pay the shipping back. They pay the shipping to you. They give you the full refund if you send them back. And why even bother with anything other than the flagship, given that the flagship doesn't even cost as much as what you're already considering? And if the SB16 Ultras don't float your boat, then SVS is not for you, because that's as good as their sealed subs get. And I think that's it. I don't know what else I would suggest doing in this case. Yeah, because there's no risk. Hear it for yourself.
Yeah,
compare them head to head. A, B, switch them.
I'm looking at, and the like used of these things are $4,000.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Each.
I mean, yeah. I honestly think that like a sealed 3000 series, would probably stack up pretty well too. But I think Rob's right. If you're going to be looking at this price range, I don't think that price necessitates better performance.
Right.
Consistently. You can't. There are brands like RBH is a brand. If you pay more RBH, you're getting more performance. Like every time, not sometimes, every time. You're getting better performance.
Well, and as you go up in SVS's lineup, there is objectively, there's no question they get louder and play lower. That's measurable and easy to prove. So,
I mean, you could look at the specs of the Fathom
right.
that whichever one you have, and match it up to the SVS one that has that same one, that same response rate, and then try to get something similar, or you can just buy the flagship and still spend less.
Because if they didn't have the free two-way shipping, well, then there's some value in us offering an opinion of what we think the result is going to be. But it's like, it doesn't even matter what we say in this case, because there is no question you can afford them. And if the flagship isn't good enough, then nothing in SVS's lineup is going to be. And I
would just co-locate them wherever your Fathoms are. I mean, I don't remember I think
the Fathoms are smaller than the 16 Ultras, so
so put the 16s on the bottom, the Fathoms on top. Play a one and then switch them out, and then play the other one, switch them out.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
Joe. Some updates. We went through two of Joe's previous questions. He was asking if there was a way to have his rants automatically play soundtracks as their native format, since using the auto listening mode applied to Nutmixer by default. And he was asking why the Ultra HD Blu-ray Ready Player One defaulted DTS Neural X when it says it has an Atmos soundtrack. Rob asked if maybe Joe had put the regular 1080p Blu-ray Ready Player One by accident instead of the
Ultra. Because they're both in the case, and very often you open the case, and the one that's in the front section there is the Blu-ray, and the Ultra HD Blu-ray is the one on the left underneath the little thing that has the digital code printed on it. I've had that many times.
I don't understand why some of these discs, like, you literally cannot tell which one's which.
It's written on there somewhere.
One's blue and one's red, and it's all stylized, and there's no... You have to go hunting for the Ultra HD logo someplace on it, and you certainly can't do it in a dark room.
That's right.
It just
That's why I said there's no blame if someone has accidentally put in the Blu-ray instead of the Ultra HD Blu-ray, because it's super... You're going to assume the one on the right-hand side, as soon as you open the thing, that's going to be the 4K, but not always. Yeah. I've had it myself, but that wasn't it. That wasn't the case.
Yeah, it turns out that the 4K disc defaults to DTS HD Master Audio, and you have to go into the disc sound menu and manually select Atmos. Why on earth would they do that? Because they do. I've been trained to do this since the days of DTS on DVD.
Yep.
It would almost never default to DTS. It would always be Dolby Digital or whatever, and you'd have to go into the sound menu. So I always go into the languages.
Blu-ray of The Dark Knight That one defaults to vanilla Dolby Digital 5.1. You have to go into the sound menu and select Dolby True HD. Dolby True HD 7.1 is there on the Blu-ray disc of The Dark Knight, but not by default. By default, it just plays the lossy Dolby Digital version. I don't know why some discs are authored that way. I have no good answer for you, but that was the case with Ready Player One. Strange.
So he began the process of manually setting his desired listening mode for each signal type on each of his inputs as they come in. It's all a bit tedious, but as we said, once he has done it, the Marantz does remember and it's working out all right. But after manually setting DTS HD Master Audio to play DTS HD Master Audio listening mode instead of DTS HD plus Neural X, he knows that his Marantz info menu still shows his top middle speakers as being active. The front panel of his Marantz also has the top middle light lit up. His Panasonic player is using the audio setting that we suggested. So what is going on here?
This was an interesting one. This was it got me to look at my own system because I also have a Marantz, and I always use an up mixer. I always use Neural X because I want my front wide speakers to be active. So I hadn't even really noticed this, but I first of all replicated his setup. I went back into my, amplifier assign menu, and I said I've only got 7 speakers, and I've got 5 on the floor, and I've got 2 top middles, and I put in. So I tried to replicate a lot of what he did. I don't have Ready Player One on Ultra HD Blu-ray, but I have another disc that has both Atmos and DTS HD Master Audio as 2 available tracks, and that is Blade Runner 2049 on Ultra HD Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. Now, that one defaults to playing Atmos, but if you go into the sound setting menu of the disc itself, you can choose DTS HD Master Audio instead. So I did all that, and my Marantz SR7010 showed the exact same thing. It showed that it was playing in DTS HD Master sound listening mode, that the signal was DTS HD Master Audio, a 5.1 signal, but that the top middle speakers were active in my system. And
was anything coming out of them, though?
Well, that's what I tested. In fact, I went to the extreme of unplugging everything else except for the speakers that were wired to the top middle, and they are dead silent. There is no sound coming out of those top middle speakers. And as soon as I put it into DTS HD plus Neural X mode, then plenty of sound was coming out of the top middle speakers. So I knew that they were wired and that those speakers work. Now, when I put my system back to what I have, which is 7 speakers on the floor, 5 normal plus front wides, and then front heights and rear heights. Yet again, on mine, it showed that all 11 speakers were active in the graphic, but no sound was coming out of any more than the 5 normal speakers. So my only conclusion is that this is basically a glitch. It's a mistake in the programming of how the display look. This is pressing the info menu button on your Marantz remote, but it also is on the front panel, that little flat below the flip down display on the Marantz. There's the front panel, and it does light up all the lights. It says all of your speakers are outputting sound, but in fact, only the 5.1 that adhere to the original signal are actually making any sound. So it's basically a glitch. Thanks for bringing it to my attention, because I wouldn't have noticed it, because I always use an up mixer anyway and expect all of my speakers to show as active.
Right. That's interesting. That would have, my guess was that, that it was saying all, as part of DTS HD Master Audio and everything else, that these are speakers that could be giving back sound, but they're they're not, because if you look at it, it's they're white. Are they always white like that, or are they sometimes the orange color?
White being like in the info menu one?
On the button.
On the info menu one, only things that are orange are active, and everything else is like what is possible but not actually active. If it's active, then it'll be orange in the info menu display.
Yeah, interesting that it's showing that. It's very strange.
People who got that Monoprice HTP1 processor, they pointed out how if you were running a 7.1.4 speaker system and you were playing something in actual Atmos or DTS-X, that the front panel read out 8.1.4, no matter what you did. And so people wrote back to Monoprice, they're like, literally someone had put the wrong number in the code, like the wrong digit in the code. Like it was like the simplest of programming errors. They hit an 8 instead of a 7, so that anytime it was supposed to show 7 on the display, it showed 8 instead.
That's just a weird thing. Yeah,
so
that's funny.
it's along those lines. Nothing is actively wrong with the sound. The sound is working the way it should.
It's doing it correctly,
the
right?
Info menu that is showing up is incorrect. I don't know if that's. I doubt Marantz will ever fix it at this point, but yeah, it's a glitch. Yeah. Weird.
There you go. Dan bought an LG C9 OLED and a Denon X3600H. He's trying to use them with his PS4 Pro. Unfortunately, he isn't getting a picture. His OLED turned on a setting called Ultra HD Deep Color, but with that on, his PS4 Pro wouldn't show any image. So he turned it off, and the picture from his PS4 Pro showed up. But then this Denon popped up a warning, which basically said, your TV is not configured to support. Am I supposed to read this?
Well,
oh yeah, I guess I'm supposed to read this. It says your TV is not configured to support 4K 60p, 4K 60p 444 422 or 4K 60p 420 10-bit video. Are you sure you want to use 4K enhanced? So everything seems to indicate that his Denon should be set to enhanced 4K signal output, and his LG should have Ultra HD Deep Color turned on, but he's getting no image from his PS4 Pro if he does that. So are there settings in his PS4 Pro that he needs to change? I'm going to take a guess.
Okay.
Before you tell us the answer, Rob, I think it's the cable.
That's my guess too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that is my guess. So yes, the Ultra HD Deep Color setting definitely in your LG needs to be turned on for whatever input you're using. It needs to be turned on. The enhanced 4K signal format setting in the Denon needs to be turned on. If you want 4K with HDR, 10-bit or 12-bit color, all the things that you're hoping to get out of your PS4 Pro, those things do have to be on. Now, if you connect your PS4 Pro, so what you could do is plug your PS4 Pro directly into a different HDMI input on your LG, just so you can see and check the settings. But your PS4 Pro, if you're wanting to output 4K and HDR and all that, both of those things, HDR and deep color on the PS4 Pro, the only options are off or auto, and they should be on auto, of course, because they're not supposed to be off. They probably already are. And the most likely thing here is that now it could be one of two cables, because it could be the HDMI cable going from your PS4 Pro into your Denon, or it could be the HDMI cable going from your Denon to your LG. Either of those cables, if they are not a premium certified high-speed HDMI cable, might not have sufficient bandwidth to do this. Because the PS4 Pro, on its menu, it is outputting the highest possible bit rate. It's doing 12-bit color RGB, which is the same as 444, at 60 frames a second. It is maxing out those 18 gigabits per second, and when the cable doesn't handle it, you get blackness. And I really think that's what's going on.
This is what cracks me up about people who are like, I think I might be having an issue with my cable, my HDMI. I'm like, you don't think you have an issue with your HDMI cable. You either I can't see anything, or it's the only possible, like, I might be having an issue is super duper weird sparkles everywhere, and you would notice it. It's not subtle.
Or like a
HDMI cable failing,
like a infrequent, once in a while the image just kind of flicks on and off, or like goes to fuzz for a moment and comes back. That means you're right on the edge. You're on the razor edge of having enough bandwidth, but not quite. But it's not like the color got slightly more vivid, or nothing like that. It's like glitch or off or perfect. Those are your options. But no, your settings are correct. The settings in the PS4 Pro are not complicated. It's simply that they're auto instead of off. And if you're not seeing an image, it's almost certainly one of your two cables or both of your HDMI cables, possibly.
Darren on Facebook. Darren has Klipsch reference Premier speakers up front, and to round out his 5.1.4 setup, you got a pair of in-wall Klipsch RP speakers and 2 pairs of in-ceilings. But his ceilings are such that he cannot actually install the in-ceilings Klipsch speakers as normal. Instead, he's making angled boxes for them at the tops of his front and back walls, so they basically look like elevation speakers. How should he aim them? Should they be angled to point straight at his seats, or should they be angled such that they're aimed somewhat above his head so they sort of fill the space overhead? Well, what's as close to firing straight down as humanly possible? Because that's what you kind of want.
Although if it's on your actual front wall and back wall, I wouldn't have them firing straight down when they're that far forward and that far back.
I would just have them like going straight forward, and then angled towards the couch, not angled in or out. Just if they're on the front wall and back wall, just angled down towards the
so
couch.
So not toed in any way, not angled inward, not the azimuth doesn't change, but the vertical, the tilt.
Vertical, whatever that is. Yeah. So I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah. But tilted so that they're like more or less coming right down at the seat or firing a little bit overhead. What are we thinking
there? Wherever your ears are, I guess. I mean, I would try towards this. I mean, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, not really. Not a tremendous amount.
I mean, I really think this is like eyeball.
I mean, I probably wouldn't have them like literally firing straight forward, like right along your ceiling. I probably wouldn't do that. If I'm having front heights and rear heights, I am going to angle them down honestly, a little bit.
If you're still within like that 15-degree cone
within
from
the cone.
dead center, you'd still be okay. So just angle them down a little bit.
I mean, if they were aimed
30 degrees, how about that? 45. I don't care.
That's probably too much. That's probably hitting your feet at that point. No, I mean, as long as you're within the cone of dispersion. I mean, just any speaker, if you're 15 degrees above or below straight forward, you are definitely within the cone of dispersion for, I don't know, I guess there could be some weird speaker, but normal speakers like this, you're definitely within that cone. If you get the angled ones like Prime Elevations or like Klipsch's angled ones that you can mount up on the walls, that's a 20-degree angle. That's what they use.
Aim them at your chest. Aim them directly at your chest. Your ears will be within that. And if you recline, you'll still be within that.
Okay. We're saying just be within the cone and you're good.
Abhu on Twitter, Abhu is thinking he'll get an Xbox Series X, or as we like to call it, the XX.
That is what Microsoft always wanted when they called it the Xbox.
We've gone from the X Bone to the XX.
That's right.
I can't make this stuff up.
They did.
Somebody over there.
They know what they're doing.
I can't wait to see how poorly they're going to handle audio with this new box of theirs. I'm very excited to see what ridiculousness we have to go through to try to get side surround. Right now, your best bet to get full Atmos on everything is to output 2-channel PCM and let your receiver do everything. So he's going to get one of the XXs, and he'd like to get a TV and an AV receiver that can take full advantage. So that means HDMI 2.1, right? Are there any affordable TVs like TCLs that have that? And will AVRant SR6014 pass through all the HDMI 2.1 big features?
No and no.
14? I don't think so. Not with the 14.
No. There are no full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 receivers that you can buy right this minute. And what are we, March 3rd, 2020, that we're recording this for people in the future? There are no AV receivers that you can buy right now that have full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports on them. Now, there is confusion out there because, unfortunately, some people talk about quote-unquote HDMI 2.1 features such as variable refresh rate or auto low latency mode, which are things that are found within the HDMI 2.1 specification. But without the full 48 gigabits per second bandwidth, you will not be able to have 4K resolution at 120 frames per second or 8K resolution. Those things require the full 48 gigabits per second bandwidth. No AV receiver on the market today can pass that through. Now, Yamaha already announced that they have models coming out later in 2020 that will have full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports on them. Denon and Marantz haven't announced it yet, but I am certain those are on the way sometime in 2020. So on the AV receiver side, wait, because all indications are that the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 will be able to do 4K resolution at 120 frames per second or 8K resolution. All indications are that they're hoping to be able to do that. As far as affordable TVs with the full bandwidth, nope. There are TVs today with full bandwidth, 48 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1. Those are the LG OLEDs that end in a 9, so the B9 and the C9 and so forth. Full bandwidth, and Samsung's 8K televisions that came out in 2019 or newer. The ones that came out in 2018 never got full bandwidth HDMI 2.1. You can't even input 8K into them, and they're being marketed as 8K TVs. But that's it. So wait, Abu. That's what you got to do.
Nick decided to follow our advice. Good, we're done. Oh wait, there's a lot of more question here. After following our advice, he still has questions. I feel like we did something wrong. Maybe our advice was not very good, Rob. I'll take the blame.
That's
on
right.
This one.
You said it first on this one.
Nick decided to follow our advice, and rather than getting a projector and 3 different motorized screens, he's just getting a 77-inch OLED. Ha! That was my advice.
It was. You remember that.
Good job, me. Why are you still asking questions? Okay, back when Lee was first looking to get an OLED, Rob recommended buying from a retailer, whether a return or exchange would be easy. This was because of the dark gray vertical banding, and Rob said it seemed like around 20% of OLED TVs had noticeable banding, so just keep exchanging until you get a good one. Is that still the case, or would it be okay to buy from a place like Newegg or Amazon Marketplace to get a lower price these days? I felt like we talked about that last week and said something about how the banding is much better these days.
It certainly seems to be. I mean, it is anecdotal evidence. I'm going by like the number of people who are still complaining about it on forums and things like that. But anecdotally, anyway, it seems as though the vertical banding issue now, it still exists. If you put up a full gray screen at 10% gray, the entire screen gray, and you walk yourself up to be within 1 foot of it, and you move your eyes across and you completely black out your room, you're like, oh, there's a vertical band. They're not completely eliminated. And this is the case. But by and large, it seems like they have drastically improved on that front. Back when Lee was first shopping, that was during the 7 era. That was 2017. Yeah. And at that time, they definitely had more vertical banding. It seems like a lot of that has been sorted. And the C9, which is the one that he's going for, I'd feel quite comfortable. And also, like, Newegg isn't bad. They'll take a return if there's something wrong, an exchange if there's actually something wrong with the television. So I feel quite comfortable going that way.
So which Ultra HD Blu-ray player should he get? The Wirecutter is still recommending the Sony players, but they do warn about the weird having to manually turn Dolby Vision on and off thing. So they suggest the $500 Panasonic UB820 as the upgrade pick. Are those really his best options? Seems strange that there isn't an inexpensive player that can just output what's on the disc without anything fancy.
Would that there were.
Yeah.
Would that there were.
Yeah. I mean, this is sort of I hate to say it, but this is still, not only is this technology still relatively new compared to other things, it's also super not popular.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, nobody, not a single company at CES announced a new Ultra HD Blu-ray player. It's just, yeah. I think it's possible that what we have on the market right now is as far as the players will go. Now, there is a player out there that is what we want, and that is Panasonic's UB450. But they don't sell it in North America. Which, I mean, I don't know, maybe...
Seems inconvenient.
Maybe it'll come here eventually. I mean, the UB450, what it does is it will output all of the HDR formats. HDR10+, Dolby Vision, regular HDR10, HLG even. It will output all of the HDR formats. It does not have Panasonic's HDR optimizer. But it's only the equivalent of about $250 in Europe and Asia, where it is available.
Right.
But yeah, in North America, we've got the UB420, which does not have Dolby Vision. So if that's the thing you were looking for, doesn't give it to you. Or the $500 UB820, which does all the things and does them very well and has the HDR optimizer. So it's got a step over the 450 in that regard.
Right.
But the price is twice as much. It's crazy that this is where we are with Ultra HD Blu-ray players, but unfortunately, that is the situation. So it's either import a UB450, which probably means you need a power adapter because it's either going to be a European plug or I guess there's some plugs in Asia.
What about localization of discs?
So
or
Ultra
HD localized?
Ultra HD Blu-rays have no regions. So you'd be fine as far as Ultra HD Blu-rays, but for regular Blu-rays and DVDs, those still have regions, and you'd have issues there. So it would only be good for playing Ultra HD Blu-rays, which seems like a weird compromise to make. So I kind of got to say you pony up for the UB820 because that's the one that does all the things.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, when we were looking for universal disc players back when before Blu-ray, I think.
Oh, sure.
I think they were like $30,000 from Denon. And that gave you DVD
audio, and
SACD,
yeah,
and DVD-A, and that, and then, that's what it gave you. And then Oppo came out with a $500 one, and we all lost our minds. So $500 seems, and that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that seemed really reasonable back then. So maybe it's not as bad as we think it is. So anyways, he's in a wide open space, and he's dealing with about 10,000 bajillion cubic feet of air. He's using the Outlaw Audio LFM1 subwoofer that's placed in the corner about 12 feet from his primary seat. And if you're wondering, that sub is, while a great sub, wildly inadequate for this space. It's not even close. So he knows this. This is not news to him. So he just got a Denon X3600H, and so this is his first time using Odyssey Multi-Q XC32. Before it began, it got him to adjust the volume knob on his Outlaw subwoofer. To get a green light, he had to max out the volume knob.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a fun feeling.
But it did get there. That's one thing.
That is something, yeah. So after Odyssey had run, it set the subwoofer output trim level to -5. So that means it was lowering the subwoofer output level, correct?
Yep.
That is correct. That's exactly what it did. 5 dB down. Nick says he typically listens with the master volume about -20 dB, I suppose is what it is. But this is also his first time using Odyssey Dynamic EQ, and he is greatly enjoying those results. He feels like his subwoofer and surround speakers have, quote, come to life, end quote. But his Outlaw LFM1 volume dial is still up at maximum. He doesn't want to risk breaking it. He isn't hearing any distressing sounds. In fact, it sounds great. But should he have any concern, and since the subwoofer trim level ended up at -5, could he actually lower his subwoofer's volume dial? Would that provide a bit of extra safety? I mean, in the end, it would end up being the same. You would either lower the volume dial, and then you would raise the trim level would end up being increased.
It would be increased, but perhaps just to 0 or +2 or 3 or something like that.
I mean, really, what I'd be most worried about is accidental, super loud volume. You were watching one thing or doing like I was doing today or the other day when I set up these speakers, which, I turned on the manual test tones. I had to put my volume up to 0 to get the full reference volume out of the stupid test tones, not full reference, but 75 dB. And then I went to go watch something else, and I didn't
turn it down.
Remember that I had done that, and the Xbox turned on. I was like,
yes.
And I was like, whoa, hello, good morning, kids. Sorry, Daddy didn't have his coffee yet. You want to give him a break here?
Yeah, I mean, the Outlaw LFM1, it's a bash amplifier. They are pretty darn solid. The chances of you actually damaging the sub are low, but not impossible.
Non-existent.
I would personally be more comfortable if my volume dial weren't at literal maximum on a sub with a bash amplifier. I mean, it's tough to say. If everything in the signal is the way it should be okay. It's if there's a signal that goes above reference, which is possible to do because you can turn the master volume dial above 0 dB, or
something that just mixed really super hot.
I mean, that could be like YouTube for sure.
Exactly. YouTube is so loud.
Yeah.
Everything else.
So I feel most comfortable keeping a subwoofer's volume dial that one that isn't DSP protected. On an SVS sub, on a monoprice sub, I'm like, go ahead and turn it to maximum. I don't care. You're never gonna break the thing. But on most subs, I'd like to keep it at like 75% or lower. To me, that like feels quite safe. There's more gain inside of that amplifier to be had.
How do you feel about a subwoofer upgrade?
Well,
and how do you feel about maybe not forcing it? Maybe not going out and buying one now, but just leaving the sub volume where it is and just knowing someday you may have to upgrade your sub, whether you like it or not.
Or a
You'll
pop,
hear a clang.
Something real nasty. I don't know about that. You're not going to get any money selling it off at that point. Yeah. Anyway, that's my. I'd feel most comfortable. I'd turn it down to like 75%. Run Odyssey again. See what it does. If it goes and puts you
move it closer to you, and you just physically move it closer to you. I mean,
it's not going to make a subwoofer though.
It's not going to do it. Yeah, it's not going to do a ton, but at least you would feel it more. You would have
in the 60 to 80 hertz range, and above that, it's doing more. But that's my advice anyway. I'm not super comfortable having it literally maxed out with a bash amplifier, although they are pretty well protected, and as long as the signal is within the range that it's supposed to be, it will be okay. So, yeah.
I don't think we helped. So if he sets it down to 75, it's just going to be really quiet, though. I mean, if he sets it down to 75, plus 12 dB on that thing is not, or whatever. I think it's plus 12 is the max it can go. It's probably not going to bring it back up to where.
Yeah, and don't leave it at plus 12. Don't do that.
No, see, that's what I'm saying.
I know.
You're just going to end up with a quiet sub, which you don't want.
This is life.
Mm.
You got 10,000 cubic feet. Sub can only do what it can do.
Go to Power Sound Audio. Just browse around.
Right.
Just look around.
Or, hey,
might be something there for you.
HSU are the people who designed your LFN1. That VTF 15H is sitting right there for $900.
$900, dude. You could play like Russian roulette with your subwoofer, and in your savings, you could save up. See if you could get to $900 before you break the sub. If you get to $900 before you break the sub,
there you go.
Then you sell the sub, and then whatever that is, you use that to take your wife to dinner to say, "I'm sorry for spending $900 on a new sub. I didn't need this. I didn't honestly need." Jay just thought it would be fun to get our thoughts on the new 50-inch. Oh, speaking of subs that you might want to buy, on the new 50-inch seismic monitor subwoofer, SMSG50 seismic monitor subwoofer.
A word in German that means sealed. That starts with the letter G. I don't know how to pronounce it.
All right. It's made by Ascendo, who's also moonlights as a low-rent superhero and bouncer at a bar in Germany, and profiled by Sound and Vision recently. The creator talks about how the design really began with the enclosure, which is 6 feet tall, because they wanted a sealed box with the resonant frequency below 20 hertz. Now, this is a 50-inch driver. 50 inches. 50 inches. That's the biggest driver you've ever seen. It's literally nearly the size of the stupid one that's at the beginning of Back to the Future.
Right.
If you think of Back to the Future, think 2/3 of that, maybe 3/4 of that driver is what this thing looks like. Okay, it's ridiculous. 6 foot tall because they want a sealed box with a resonant frequency below 20 hertz. But when they tested every available subwoofer driver, even using multiple drivers, none could meet their output and group delay goals, and could justify how much they're going to charge you for it. So they made their own 50-inch driver out of carbon fiber composite. It had to be manufactured in sections, and they mated that to a 14-inch diameter voice coil with 88 pounds of neodymium magnets, because rare earth metals. Don't worry about the people that are mining those things. Yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine. First world problems. The end result can output 140 decibels at 20 hertz and 105 decibels down at 5 hertz. Not that you can hear it. You will certainly feel it. All with very low group delay. At the time of the article, they said they've sold 8 of them, all to private home theaters in places like Dubai and China and Indonesia, I believe. No commercial cinemas have ordered as yet. Any comments? It's ridiculous and stupid and whatever. But, and I mean, it's like a 5 foot tall enclosure or 6 foot tall enclosure. Now, when you go to their website, and I have no idea how much the rest of their subwoofers cost, but they're not called subwoofers. They're called super or super sub subwoofer. I don't know. They're called subliminal or something like that. They're not called. They're like meant to be the very, very lowest. And then some of their subwoofers don't even reach 80 hertz. Many of them top out at 100.
Right.
So there's not a lot of headroom above 80 hertz that you're seeing here. So these are subs that are meant to go super duper low. Now, I have no idea what these things sound like or how linear they are or anything else. But what I do like about them is that they're tall and thin. And they're almost they almost look like they
appear tall and thin because of how ridiculously tall they are. I mean, it's still like, what is that, about 2.5 feet deep?
Right, but I'm talking about their other subs. They have a whole bunch of other subs that they offer that are 36-inch drivers and 24-inch drivers, which are still stupidly large, but they're they're reasonable size, but they tend to be much thinner than you would expect. And even this thing, which is humongous, but it literally, I think the back of the voice coil is on the back wall of this thing. I mean, it is absolutely as shallow as it possibly can be. So while I believe that this thing is ridiculous, and I mean, I don't think there's much cause for it. I mean, I think it weighs over 200 kilograms, if I'm right.
I think so, yeah. Well, I mean, it's 88 pounds of magnet. The driver's like 160 pounds. So right there. And that's not even including the cabinet, which is monstrous. So it's enormous.
I don't mind, some of their other offerings. And I wouldn't mind taking a listen to them or, getting an idea of what they how they actually perform in measure, because relatively speaking, I like this idea. I like the idea of a driver of a subwoofer that is thinner
Mm.
than and taller, because I'd rather have something that, there's so many times where, like, well, you put a couple in the corners, people are, I don't got enough room in the corner. Well, if you had something that was 3.5 feet wide and 5 feet tall, but only 5 inches thick,
You put it
you could
along a
put it
wall somewhere.
along a wall, right in the front left corner, in the back right corner, and it's a subwoofer, so you just give it enough. And most of them have front slots or front ports of
Right.
some sort, and it just makes it super easy to put these things pretty much wherever you want to put them, and I like that.
Okay.
So I'm not. Clearly this thing is a publicity stunt
Yes.
meant for the ultra rich. If you have to ask how much it costs, I like that he said that it's going to cost hundreds to thousands of dollars to install. I'm like, that seems
real
low
low ball. Yes, definitely.
I think maybe that's a bad
Considering it
translation.
requires
German. What he meant was hundreds to thousands, hundreds of thousands to
Right.
millions is what he
Yeah.
meant to say, or something like that.
Maybe that's just the way they speak. No, considering it requires a crane to move it. Yeah. I'm thinking that's more than just a few $100s worth of installation costs alone. Never mind how much the thing costs. But yeah, objectively, for their design goals, they're not wrong. Physics is physics. If you want a sealed cabinet that has a resonant frequency below 20 hertz, yeah, it's got to be that size. That's just how it works. But nothing, of course, nothing is said about the research that has been done into our ability to hear group delay. Group delay is just how long does it take from when the signal was sent to when the sound producing device actually gets to the volume level that the signal was requesting. And in the case of subwoofers that have ports, there's some amount of time, because it relies on the resonance of the port to get you to the output level that the signal requested. So there is that delay in there. Whereas a seal driver is essentially just relying on the movement of the woofer itself, and so it's shorter group delay, but to get to that volume output, you need to move a massive amount of air right now. So again, they're not wrong about that, but our ability to detect group delay as frequency goes down gets worse and worse and worse. Like everywhere below about 40 hertz, it gets real tough for us to detect group delay, because the wave is already so long. The room is shorter than the wavelength. We're always hearing...
Not for people buying these things.
Yes. We're always hearing reflected sound at that point, at least in our homes. And so whether the sub is using some group delay to get to that maximum volume level doesn't really matter that much. So it's kind of chasing after something you don't need, but
this is the essence of esoteric gear, though. This is the essence of esoteric gear. It's like, oh, I'm going to make cables that have the lowest possible resistance.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Everything else about this cable is bad, but its resistance is phenomenal. It acts like an EQ on my signal, but the resistance is phenomenal. I'm like, yeah, this is certainly, the sales pitch is a straw man. It's like, oh, we were trying to get the best group delay that we could possibly get. And no one that says, but why?
Yeah,
because everybody sits around and goes, okay, well, that must be something important.
If you set up your parameters and you say this is the only way to get there, they're not lying about that, but parameters... Do the parameters need to be set the way they set them to get good performance? Yeah. And in this case, the answer is no. So
this is just meant to sell the... if this is like anything else. You're not meant to sell
obviously
these in bulk.
Who is buying these? Very few people.
Yeah, very few people. But what it is getting you to do is go to their website and figure out what else they have.
For all the things that honestly, you actually could consider buying for real.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would be interested in hearing more about some of those other subwoofers, because especially for all you guys who have your false walls and weird things that aren't closets but certainly look like closets but don't have doors, they have the kind of offerings where you could just slide them back there and it would just go perfectly. But where do you get this stuff from? You got to go to a specialty dealer, and it probably costs $1 bajillion. So sorry, we'll continue to recommend SVS. Rob, this different Rob, not this Rob, different Rob. Rob previously asked us about his Dayton SA1000 amplifier and how much power it is drawing while it is in standby. He was expecting it to be like his Denon X4400H and his SVS subwoofer, both of which draw less than 1 watt when they're in standby. But it appears that we were correct in the Dayton, and by we, he means Rob, was correct in that the Dayton amp will always draw about 20 watts even when it's asleep. He wanted to be able to cut that constant power draw, so he bought a 4-pack of heavy-duty smart plugs that work with Amazon's voice assistant. These smart plugs also monitor power draw, and he found it interesting to discover that his Xbox One X is by far his most power-hungry device. It, too, is drawing a constant 20 watts when it's asleep and a continuous 350 watts or so when it's in use. Thank you, video drivers.
It's a PC, yes.
By contrast, even when powering his full surround sound system, his Den receiver never seems to draw more than 130.
Yes, for everyone worrying about I need 200 watts times 11, that's how much power is actually being drawn by speakers most of the time. Less than that.
In any case, he can now use an app or a voice command to cut the power to his Dayton amp completely, and it has a hard power switch, so turning the power back on is just as easy. But when he cuts the power at the outlet like this, his Dayton makes a pretty loud thunk sound. If he presses Dayton's power button, it seems to softly power down. It seems to softly power down. I wonder why. So is he potentially damaging the amp or the bass shakers that he has it attached to? This is pretty much the same as yanking the power cord when it's on or having a sudden blackout, correct? So most amps have a soft power down mode,
and
so that you don't get that start as well, right? So you can get that, you don't get that big pop.
Yeah, it's a sudden rush of current that happens otherwise.
Is this going to hurt your bass shakers? I mean, I don't really like bass shakers that much anyway, so I don't care. But
I mean, bass shakers I'm really not worried about.
That
I'm not worried about at all. But the amplifier, is anything happening there?
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think so.
I mean, it's just they put these things in here because the people are worried about their speakers, basically.
Yeah.
And now it's common practice to put these, the soft start and the soft stop, so that you don't get these weird noises. I would be worried about it if there was a not full range, but a regular speaker attached to it with a tweeter.
Yeah.
I would be worried about a tweeter being broken. I'm not worried about a bass shaker or an amplifier or a subwoofer or anything like that.
Agreed.
So,
yeah. I mean, this is very much just like yanking the power cord out or having a blackout, and you wouldn't expect your amplifier to die because you had a blackout. I mean, you'd go, hey, what the heck happened? I mean, maybe when the power comes back on, if there's a surge,
big rush.
But not because the power went out. You wouldn't expect your amplifier to get hurt by that. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a scary sound, but I think you're okay.
Yeah. Mike has noticed that when he plays Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, or Apple TV Plus on his Apple TV 4K, the audio is quieter and the bass sounds weaker than when he plays the same service on his Android box. Which one is correct? Things sound more immediately impressive coming out of his Android streaming box, but if he just turns up his master volume knob when using his Apple TV 4K, things do sound more pronounced. He has to get close to 0 dB on his volume dial, though, so does the Apple TV 4K have lower audio quality? No, it definitely has lower bass volume. I mean, like whatever the standard volume of this thing is lower. I mean, think of that just the gain issue is all
it
this
is just gain. And the Apple TV 4K, I mean, in my experience with my system, it is correct. In that if I switch between, say, my Oppo Ultra HD Blu-ray player and my Apple TV 4K, I don't have to change the volume. Those two things are outputting movies at the same volume, which to me is, well, they're putting it out at proper reference level volume and everything gets calibrated correctly. If your Android streaming box, and I don't know which one he has, I don't think it's the NVIDIA Shield, because my NVIDIA Shield, I also don't have to adjust the volume unless it's in the source like YouTube or something like that. But Netflix to Netflix or Plex to Plex, I don't have to change the volume between my NVIDIA Shield and my Apple TV 4K. So I think he's got a different streaming box that is running Android TV. There's lots of them out there. The chances that one of those other boxes maybe has a higher gain setting on its output seems very possible.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I think in general, which one's more correct? I think Rob's right that the Apple TV is probably the more correct one. But the reality is, it's just if you level match the two boxes and switch to AB between them, you would not be able to tell the difference.
Now, there is a setting in the Apple TV 4K in the audio settings, and it's right on the front page. You don't have to go digging for it, like not the front page, but if you go into the the display and sound settings part of the Apple
Right.
TV 4K's menu, it's right there. That does say, what are the exact words they use? It's something along the lines of like lower loud noises or something like it. Basically, it's a dynamic range control
Compressor.
And by default that is on. Now I suspect he would have seen that, but maybe not. I mean, by default it is on. So go into the sound and display settings, and there is the little setting there that for dynamic range compression. It's something about make loud sounds quieter, I think is what it says. So turn that off, because that could potentially be part of this. But otherwise, it's more likely that your Android Stream Box is actually louder than other reference devices would be. And that is what the individual input level setting on your AV receiver is for. Your AV receiver likely has input by input the ability to raise or lower the volume of that one input. And you might actually want to lower the volume level of your Android box, because it's the one that's, in all likelihood, actually too loud.
Okay, his room is open at the back to his kitchen and dining area. The ceiling is slightly sloped with the low end at the front of the room where his projection screen is. His floor is hard. So his soft couch and love seat plus a rug in front of his couch are about the only absorptive things in his open concept room. Have you considered getting a large cat? Because we understand those are quite absorptive. Yeah. So for those, if you're not on YouTube, it's a normal looking space.
Yeah, I mean,
hardwood
it's
floors.
not enormous. We're not talking about a huge, wide space, but it's open concept where we can see there's an opening at the back that leads to his kitchen.
He's sitting, probably 10 feet away from
like a 100-inch screen, kind of looks
100
like.
maybe. Yeah, he's got clipped speakers all up front. So
you got no problem with output of those speakers to your seating position. We know that.
True. It's got towers, man. Look at those
and
things.
a big center.
So he's got about $400 to put towards acoustic panels right now. Should he go with GIC or Acoustimac? And where should he place them? As for subwoofers, he has two HSU subs, but they're in the front two corners and won't be moved. Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm sorry. It sounds like they're very obstinate subwoofers, and you should have a stern talking with them. Don't tell me you won't be moved, sir. I'm the boss of this place. Yeah, so I would go with the cheapest.
Which, in this case, would be Acoustimac. Acoustimac is a little less expensive. Now, what I like about GIC's normal panels is they build their frames such that there is an air gap behind the absorption of their standard panels, like their 242 or their 244 panels. The frames are deeper than the insulation itself, so there's an air gap automatically built in. Acoustimac doesn't do that. Acoustimac, the panel is just the insulation. That's the depth of the panel. GIC has very similar ones that they call their spot panels. They used to only offer their spot panels in 1-inch thickness. Now they offer them in a 2-inch thickness. So a 2-inch thick GIC spot panel is about the same as a regular Acoustimac 2-inch panel. Those things will perform very similarly, and they're actually priced kind of similarly. But Acoustimac has more finish options without the price going up drastically. So if you want something other than just plain fabric, if you want suede or something with a pattern on it, Acoustimac can give you that without the price going up much. So I think Acoustimac is probably a little bit, bang for buck. You get a little bit more panel or a finish option at a lower price, and I have no problem with their performance. But don't go for the 1-inch. Go for at least 2-inch panels.
So he's got nothing on these walls.
Nothing.
Just about. It looks like there's something behind him. Might be some pictures. It's hard to really see.
Yeah,
what
but those are definitely not
projector.
panels of any kind. Those are hanging pictures, if they're anything.
So the places I would first focus on are the wherever the first reflection points are of your
on your side walls.
Front left, your front leftist speakers. I would put a lot behind your head because those speakers are firing directly at your face, and there is a wall behind you. So I would put something back there to catch any reflections.
Yeah, so right below where his projector is hanging, basically where his picture frames are right now, I'd like to have a panel there. Thicker the better, to be honestly, but at least a 2-inch panel, maybe a 4-inch if you can afford it. And I'd put like a couple of 2-foot by 4-foot panels on each sidewall, your left and right sidewalls. Yep. Start with that. That's probably his $400 budget right there, but just about. I would love to have some bass traps in those front left and right corners, but it's more important to have the back wall and the side walls first. You'll probably notice that a bit more.
Right. So corner traps would be great where if you can get them, and then we're talking in the future here. Behind your front speakers, behind your center channel, those would all be other places that you would, basically anywhere.
Yeah,
This
kind
phone.
of, but
We haven't even touched the ceiling yet, but there's a fan up there, so probably not. So he says he's using an Epson 2150 projector. He does most of his viewing during the day. He keeps his lights off, and he has blinds over his two windows at the back and curtains over the windows that are behind his screen. There's a small, narrow, and tall uncovered window in the door that's to the left of his screen, so it's dim when he's watching, but certainly not pitch black. Should he consider an ambient light rejecting screen? I would consider buying a direct view TV before I would consider a light rejecting screen, but I hate those things. So, I mean, you can consider it, but I wouldn't buy it. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, Tom and I do disagree on this in that I am willing to consider ambient light rejecting screens, but only the really good ones, and they are not cheap. The one that I'm willing to consider is Illusion Visions. It does work. I mean, black is still not true black, but it is darker and the contrast stays there, and it doesn't look bad when it is pitch black at night. You don't get the horrible hot spotting that most screens that call themselves ambient light rejecting. That's the thing that Tom really hates about them, is that the picture becomes uneven in the dark. It doesn't look as good as just a white screen. But so, I mean, Illusion Visions is my favorite, but it's not cheap. It is $2,000 plus.
You know what's cheaper than that? Blackout curtains.
Right.
Blackout curtains are way cheaper.
I mean, if you're saying I've got a tight budget of $400 for my acoustic treatments, I'm like, do you have $2,000 plus for your projection screen? I mean, it's way more than what you paid for your projector. So it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense,
I would buy a big OLED and then move my couch close enough to it so that it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he was probably thinking maybe elite screens at the most. I think he was probably thinking something like a Carl's Place fabric or something like that. They call it ambient light rejecting. I'm like, it's not really. It's basically gray with gain. That's what it is, and I don't consider that truly ambient light rejecting. To me, ambient light rejecting has to have like geometry in the screen with like black on the top and a sawtooth design and reflection from like that type of thing, and that's not what those are. They're just gray with gain. I'm like, nah, that's not a good choice.
Right. To do this right, it does cost a lot of money, and I doubt that if you're going to only spend $400 on room treatments, that you're going to want to spend. I mean, at this point, you might as well be considering OLED.
When your projector was a 2150, I'm like, I don't think this person is looking to spend $2,500 on their screen. It doesn't make sense.
The blackout curtains at Amazon I just bought were like ridiculous, like $16, $20, $25 a piece, and you two for a window. And if there's a door or whatever, I mean, get some PVC pipe. I hate to say this. I mean, if you were going to do like on the budget, if it's a door with a window in it that you can't do it, just build like a frame out of PVC and glue it together and then slide it into place whenever. In his case,
the little window that he has, he could take some like packing foam and just like put it in there when he's watching and pull it back out when he's done.
Right, something like that. Yeah, anything. Dwayne asks, which is the better TV, the 82-inch Samsung Q60R or the 86-inch LG UM8070? Both are 4K LCD TVs. Both say they do HDR, but the LG says it does Dolby Vision, and the Samsung says it does HDR10+. Is there a big picture quality difference? What are our thoughts? I don't have any thoughts on this one.
All right.
I'm going to get some water. I need water.
Sounds good. I'll go ahead and answer. If these were my only two options, I would go for the Samsung Q60 over the LG UM8070. I don't know how anybody is satisfied with an LG LCD. I'm sorry. I'm sure there are people listening to this right now who have one and are like, I think it looks great. I can't stand them. I'm sorry. It's not just the IPS panels that don't have very good black levels and contrast. If you're in a really bright room all the time, you might not notice that. It's the unevenness of the lighting. Like, I've never seen an LG, and the larger they get, the worse this gets. I've never seen an LG LCD TV that has a nice even backlight other than like the one or two full array local dimming ones that they did at one point. But that isn't the case with this one. This is an edge-lit display. So the Samsung Q60R is an edge-lit, but at least it's a VA panel. At least it looks fairly uniform. And if these were my only two options, I would go for the Samsung here. But I wouldn't get either of these. I would step up. I mean, I know price is obviously what you're looking at here because you're going for the big size at the low cost. But I would go for the Q70 because the Q70 in Samsung's lineup is such a step up from the Q60, it's kind of ridiculous. The Q70 gives you full array local dimming. Not a tremendous number of zones, but some, better than one strip of light along the bottom, which is what the Q60 has. The contrast is so much higher. The ability to show you HDR, like the Q60, it tops out at like 350 nits. It's like it's really not HDR. So to me, I'm like, I wouldn't get either of these. A Q70, I can fully get behind. So that's my real answer, Dwayne. I know I'm asking you to spend more money, but like, it's so.
How much more is it?
I think it's about $500 more ish, something in there. I'd have to look.
That sounds like a lot.
It kind of is, but I mean, it's like this is not a subtle difference we're talking about here. I wouldn't tell it to you that way if it were.
All right. See, sent your hate mail to Rob at AV Rant.
That's right.
No one ever sends you hate mail. I get all the hate mail. But somewhat. So, has anybody ever sent you an angry email?
Yeah. We got that guy who posted comments on the website who just really wants to stick it to me because I recommend the Apple TV 4K and he hates them.
Oh, there's that guy. But there was the guy that bought the Sierra speakers and didn't like them.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
That guy probably sent you something mean too. So 2. Everybody loves Rob. Ben is making his 12-foot wide by 16-foot long by 8-foot high enclosed room into a dedicated home theater. Since the room is not large, he would like to maximize the space. He's been strongly considering the RBH signature on-wall speakers for his front 3 and the RBH Ultra 1 on-wall speakers for his surrounds. Other than the KEF T-Series, RBH Ultra 1 seem to be about the skinniest on-wall speakers around. So with the room only 12 feet wide, this is very appealing to him. The Ultra 1 speakers are only rated down to 100 hertz. In his current setup, he's using only a single subwoofer, and he's found that using a crossover higher than 80 hertz starts to make it localizable. But in this new dedicated theater design, he'll have multiple subs. So will a higher crossover be okay? He's finding himself a bit hung up on the 80 hertz number. All right, so 2 things. First of all, how close is your current sub to you now when you can localize it? Because I have only ever been able to localize a sub when I am practically sitting on it, which means it's right behind my couch or something along those lines. So the further away it is from you, I believe, and in a closed space like this, the further away it is from you, the more likely it is going to be, in my opinion, in my experience, that you're not going to be able to localize it.
But he's going to have multiple subs anyway, at which point I'm not worried at all.
Right. So this is from the single sub.
Right.
Like if you just took this one sub and stuck it in this, put it in the corner that's furthest away from you, I doubt you're going to be able to localize it. I think the only localizing you'll be able to do, it'll be between your ears and won't be between you and the sub. You'll think you can localize it, but if somebody snuck in there and switched the sub to the other corner, you would have no idea. Having multiple subs will make this a non-issue. I actually think that the 100 hertz, this is RBH we're talking about. Those people have no idea how to exaggerate.
Yeah.
At all.
It's very accurate.
They don't round.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if your receiver thought these were 100 hertz crossover.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly where it sets them.
You think so? I wouldn't be. Yeah. I'd be surprised if they. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up sending them at 80. Or at least 90.
In any event, this is no concern whatsoever. I mean, ideally, you would actually be setting your subwoofers to play all the way up to the transition frequency of the room, because by definition, that is where sound truly becomes localizable, is above that frequency. But we do start running into other issues that happen if you were to set a 250 hertz crossover. There's not much doubt about that. But no, a 100 hertz crossover, a 120 hertz crossover, even getting up to 150 hertz, when you've got multiple subs, it's not going to be an issue. So don't worry. The Ultra ones, I think, are a fantastic choice in this case.
Yeah. The signature on-wall speakers are just over 4 inches deep. Would it be okay to mount them and then basically cover the rest of the front wall with 4 inches of insulation? It would all be going behind a false wall and an acoustically transparent screen. I have no problems with this.
Okay. In fact, you just made yourself a THX baffle wall. Congratulations. That's kind of what you're
the one thing.
To do.
So to say what would I have problems with is if the installation was proud or in front of.
Sure.
the front of the speaker.
Because then that's going to affect your with dispersion of the sound at that point. Yeah.
That is where I would have the issue. As long as the insulation, as long as the speaker is in front of the insulation, I'm okay with it. So yeah. He would like his a theater look in this room. So he's planning on a stage at the front of his room. Would it be better just make a solid stage that is filled with sand, or should he leave openings and fill the stage with insulation to act as an acoustic absorption? Yeah, I'd fill it with sand.
Me too.
And then if there was space left over, you could put some absorption in there. But
I just want it inert.
I'd just fill it with sand.
The stage at the front of the room, I just want it inert. I don't want to be messing around trying to turn that thing into a uncalculated bass trap. Not forget that nonsense. Just make the thing inert and you're done. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm just looking at the pronunciation. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the pronunciation. I don't know if it came from him or for you, but either way, but thank you. I'm just going to make sure. Davide, who says ciao from Italy. So our Italian
it is an Italian
friend
name.
Here. Yeah, and this is a freaking house is what this is.
Yeah, here we go.
Criminy, dude. I tell you. This is going to be very hard to explain to you guys, so I would highly recommend you go to avrant.com and click on the pictures and scroll down to number 14. I don't know how Rob does this, but it's the white with the wood on the ceiling, because this place is like my dream home. So, Davide, I'm coming to visit. I don't know where he lives.
In Italy.
But I've been to Italy. I love it. So, Davide, it's in Tuscany. Davide is renovating a 14th century villa in Tuscany. The large attic will include an open area where he'd like to install a theater with all the openings and sloping, uneven shape of the ceiling. This thing is like, I mean, it's a castle.
Yeah.
So no straight lines on the ceiling. With all the openings in the sloping, uneven shape of the ceiling with exposed wooden beams, the total space is roughly 1,100 square feet with an average height of around 15 feet. So it's a bajillion feet.
We're talking 17,000 cubic feet of air that we're dealing with here. Yes.
Yeah. So, I still have you have the plans on here. I still have no idea where this is going to be. Is it in the middle of this thing?
So the big space in the middle there, that's what it is. That kind of little bit
it is a
boulder section there is the fireplace. So
it's a big square room basically, but the going towards the outside wall from the center here, it's slow. It kind of slowly slopes down, like changes
because this is an attic
3 or 4
space,
times.
So
yeah, and there's windows along the floor at the
right, because those are the top windows of the building.
That's where they shot. Those are murder holes. That's where they shot the people when they came to attack the castle. So the main part of this attic has a central fireplace, basically a column in the middle of the room with the fireplace open on 3 sides. Then it's a kitchen, dining area, and lounge area. All of that is open to a whole other section of the attic. Davide.
Hit the da at the beginning, and then it's.
I know Davide.
It's Italian, so you don't leave off the e at the end. Davide.
Okay. Well, yeah, you've been practicing. I just did this for the first time. Sorry. Ari owns a Marantz SR8012 receiver and a set of 7.1.4 Yamo speakers. He would like to reuse those as possible. There's a skylight and windows, and the intention is currently to keep this whole space bright, so it does not seem at all suitable for projection. So what size for the TV and where should it go? There's a fairly large corner section to the left opposite the dining area or beside the kitchen. There's a fairly large section of a wall and then a doorway close to the corner. He's already decided on an interesting flat platform sectional couch that uses weighted pillows for the backrest, so it can basically face any direction. So it's like a flat couch with nothing on top, except there is something on top. There are pillows that you can move, but they're heavy.
Yeah.
So when you put them there, you can actually lean against them.
That's right.
It's freaking cool is what it is.
And I do assume that the shape of this sectional couch is not actually like static, that you could conceivably make it a different shape.
You can move it around.
Yeah, it's in pieces. So I don't think it has to be this sort of Z shape that he's created here.
You could reform it
I would imagine so. It looks like you can. Yeah.
But the thing on casters, man, you change the thing on.
So
would we put the TV next to the kitchen or one of the walls in the corner and opposite the dining area? So, okay, I'm gonna be honest. This is a nightmare.
I mean, this
for a home
this is
theater.
not like you wouldn't walk in and go, "Oh, this room should be a theater." No, I mean, this is a. I understand you want a TV and a sound system in this room. Totally on board with that. But this isn't like a dedicated theater space whatsoever.
No.
So yeah.
And then we're gonna get to these questions later, but he really doesn't want speakers in this room. That much seems totally clear.
I
that
mean,
he
not
is not
out
interested in
into
having
this
speakers
room.
in there.
He's fine with having like some speakers beside the TV up along a wall. Yeah.
So this can quickly spiral out of control. I'm going to be honest with you. This can quickly spiral out of control. And I am of the opinion that we should be very, very practical when we are addressing this. So what you really want is the ability to view TV from time to time and maybe have a good time with a movie. And I am 100% in favor of you doing that. Yeah. I think that what we do is we find the TV that you want, which I think should be an OLED, and I think it should, or something along those lines. And I think we should figure out what wall you want to put it on, and then we'll figure out your speakers based on that. I don't think 7.1.4 is going to happen.
Yeah, we can address that on the audio side of things. I mean, my thinking was this is a big space. I completely agree. I don't know how you would handle a projection setup in here. It doesn't make sense. No. But I'm saying, like, you get the biggest TV you reasonably can. I would kind of, if you're doing this like soon, I would kind of maybe run out and grab a Sony X900F. They have an 85-inch that is at a reasonable price, but it's full array local dimming. It's HDR. It's Dolby Vision. I think it's the best of the 85-inch TVs that are still available. In Europe, I believe it was the XF90. So it's a slightly different model number. I'm just saying that.
I said OLED simply because if I lived in the castle, only an OLED would do.
77 inches is, I mean, well, maybe he does have $30,000 to spend on the 88-inch, but
he's got a castle.
The 88-inch can't be wall mounted or anything. So I say 85-inch LCD, I think, makes sense here. The Sony XF90 is the European model number. That's the one I would go for because I think you need as big as you can reasonably get. But I mean, I'm looking at this and I go, does it go beside the kitchen? Because it certainly could. It could go on the wall that's beside the kitchen, or does it go more in the corner space that's opposite the dining room? And I kind of think the corner space makes more sense to me. In fact,
so if I'm looking at this diagram here, it would be on the bottom left.
The bottom left of the diagram, that's correct. And I'm almost thinking maybe you actually corner mount this TV and have the whole setup kind of at a 45-degree angle. I mean, basically facing the way he has the sofa looking in his blueprint type diagram. If that were,
so you could actually see the TV from the
kitchen and from from the dining room as well. I'm thinking a corner setup actually makes a lot of sense in here. That's my inclination.
I could get behind that. That. I mean, he's clearly not wanting to like close anything off, and that's. I mean, I completely.
Well, yeah. I mean, why would you close any of this type of room off?
It's just gorgeous. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I could get behind that. I could also get behind to the right of, I guess, to the right of the fireplace. So with the dining room, with the kitchen on your left, the dining room.
Well, I mean, those are exactly the two options that he mentioned. So we're not really helping by reiterating.
No, we're not. I mean, I think in order for us to actually help, we're going to have to be flown out to Italy and take a look at the space for ourselves.
But I'm just looking at like
that's the only reason
where all the seating is in this room, where people will naturally be facing in this room. And to me, all of that is more conducive to looking towards that left corner area. I think the beside the kitchen one feels more like the back of this room. That's just my inclination.
I agree with that. So he can't figure out where his side surround speakers would go. He doesn't want any speakers anywhere in the large opening to the other side of the attic. He doesn't want any speakers standing beside or mounted close to the central fireplace. Making things real hard.
Kind of where they would go if we.
So how would we do the speaker layout? He has it in mind that he'd like to do a 7.2.4 configuration. What do we think would be best? I think 2.1. Maybe.
I'm thinking 5.2. I mean,
you think 5.2?
I mean, center speaker. That's easy.
Where is he going to put his side surrounds?
On the ceiling. I don't do Atmos.
Well, I don't know if he wants to. Would you want to mount things to those wooden beams up there? 15 feet, 20
I
feet
mean,
over his head.
they can be
He
the
said
type
it was
that.
the average of 15 feet. So you get those tall ones are probably 20,
Mm,
25 feet up.
I mean, well, you know what you could do. You know what? Yeah, I'm looking at this. If the TV's in that left corner, like we're talking about, the wall beside the dining room and the wall beside the kitchen, that's low. So if you had a
Yeah.
surround speaker basically on the first wooden beam up,
Yeah.
that it's
Right over the dining room table, basically.
well, no, I mean it'd be like in between the dining room and the kitchen, but on the horizontal wooden beam of his ceiling. You could have one there, and then you could have one on the opposite wall, like just to the side of the big opening. Because you're right, like speakers facing straight down don't make sense, but
So no, he already just says, but he can't figure out.
like
on the
I'm
sample.
definitely saying don't do Atmos in here. Just don't do it.
No.
This isn't a room for Atmos. Just don't even think about it. 5.2 at most is what I'm saying.
Well,
here.
okay, so 5.2 at most. We haven't told you what the subs yet because I don't know.
Well, that's coming up.
I would be okay with 2.1
Nah.
if you went all the way down to 2.1. I have a feeling you're gonna have a hard time wanting to put a subwoofer anywhere. If you corner load this TV and you put a piece of furniture there, you could hide the big old sub we're gonna have to get behind the TV.
Yeah.
So I think that makes the most sense. This space is so large that where we're talking about everybody else, like, oh, the wavelength is longer than your room, might not be the case in here.
A good portion of the base is not. I mean, the very deepest 20 hertz frequencies, yes, but a good amount of the base is not larger than the dimensions of this space. Yeah.
So first of all, 7.2.4 without giving us any place for us to put the speakers is awfully difficult.
Put that out of your mind. Don't do Atmos. Don't do 7 speakers.
How do you feel about like drones hovering with speakers on them?
Actually,
because that's pretty much how that
I'm
would have to work.
looking at this again. I'm like, actually, instead of I said the first horizontal beam just above the windows, but actually, if you went higher, if you went to that second horizontal beam, that gets you away from everything. Like you're not even really going to be looking at the speaker there, and it could go above the opening doorway. So your surround speakers are going to be well elevated, but that's okay. I got no problem with that in a 5.2 setup. And I think that keeps the look nicer. It gets them up and out of the way. You're barely even thinking about your surround speakers, but you have them so that you get some surround fill. We absolutely do not want overhead Atmos speakers or surround backs.
So is J112 Yamo subwoofer is a slotted port 12-inch model. Obviously will not pressurize the space. Boy, there's an understatement. But he likes the design and the looks. Okay, if you do what I say, you don't have to look at it at all. And any subwoofers in this room will be visible unless you do what I say, in which case it won't be. So should he just get a second one of these, or should he get a pair of different subs, and where should he position the two subwoofers? Obviously, you're right. You're not going to pressurize the space. You don't want to pressurize the space. That's not really an option here. So I think getting two, no offense, but for this space, garbage subwoofers that aren't going to do anything but, potentially
in out-and-out terms, the J112 is not garbage, but it is not suitable for this space.
Not for this space. Okay. In a normal home theater, perfectly fine sub. I'd be perfectly happy recommending it. Somebody says, should I upgrade my sub? I would say you could, but you could not.
Right.
It's up to you. This would not be a thing. But in this space and liking the looks, unfortunately, that's not going to be
the issue here is that, like, if you were to run any kind of room correction auto setup program, it's going to, first of all, it's not even going to be able to set them at a level that will work. And then the poor thing is going to be creating more distortion than anything else. It's not going to sound good. It's going to be a bad experience. So this is why you do have to consider the amount of space, even if you're like, I'm not going to crank the bass, I'm not going to pressurize the whole thing, but you still want a subwoofer that is at least capable of not distorting in the type of space that you have. Now, I mean, we always talk about SVS. You can get SVS in Italy. That's not the issue. They have some very nice looking subwoofers with a beautiful gloss black or a gloss white finish. A gloss white in here might work really well.
If it's going to be as white as it looks, then yeah.
And the nice
that
thing
would be
about
fine.
the SVS is that even if they are turned up to their maximum, they will not badly distort. They will not bottom out. So that is the type of thing I would certainly consider in here. They're still not going to pressurize this space, but like I don't think he's getting PB16 Ultras, all right? But it would be that type of thing. There are other options in Europe. What is the BK Electric? Is
Right.
one of the really popular ones, at least in UK. I'm not sure about whether they're how available they are in Italy, but it's going to be that type of thing where you need something more capable than the Yamo. Don't just get a second one. That it's not going to be a good experience. It's not a good way to spend your money.
Yeah, get a big SVS cylinder, the biggest cylinder you can afford, and stick it behind that TV. And then
Could do that. A 4,000, a PC 4,000. I mean, it's not going to do 16,000 cubic feet, but it's not going to hurt itself at all.
you could just throw a nice sheet over the top of it, and
but I do think like
nobody knows what it
a
is.
gloss white in here would not look out of place.
But where are you gonna put it? I'm saying behind the TV in that
Behind the
corner,
TV.
and then where are you putting the second one? Over by the I mean, it really doesn't matter.
Not particularly. I mean, we're not dealing with a rectangular space, but I mean, I was initially looking at this. I would be like, what is basically the left and right walls in the diagram, because that is sort of central to this whole space. So basically somewhere
there's those stairs that are going down. We think
that's
that
right.
may or may not have doors.
So I mean, I'd have it somewhere along where we're going to have the TV in the corner, and I'd have one on the opposite side, basically beside his kitchen. On the other side of that divider where the fireplace is, on the other side of that, beside his kitchen. And I think a couple of gloss white subs there would look not out of place at all.
Yeah. So the 4 Atmos speakers he already owns are Yamo's ATM50 upward firing modules that are designed to sit on top of his Yamo towers. Clearly, this attic ceiling does not look appropriate for upward firing Atmos. So do we have any suggestions on that front? Well, yeah, I mean,
we addressed
honestly,
that.
I would
do Atmos in here.
I wouldn't do Atmos at all, but since you have them, and if you're going to end up still using the towers up front on the either side of your TV, which you may end up doing, you can throw them up there and see what happens. I mean, I really don't think it's bouncing off the ceiling.
You can make them front heights.
Yeah.
I mean, these Yamo ones, they aren't the type where you have the option of mounting them on a wall and just using them as angled speakers. These are dedicated. They have to go on top of a speaker and fire upwards. So there isn't much you can repurpose these ones for. Well, you're saying just put them on top of towers and see what happens, even with the crazy. I guess.
I don't think the ceiling it makes any difference.
Right. It's all the processing.
It's all. I
still don't think you're going to get very good results with that, though.
It costs literally nothing.
True.
They're
already in hand. I suspect you will end up taking them back down. I say don't do Atmos in this room.
So all of his Yamo speakers are the S80 series, which is one step down from their flagship models. He's heard KEF speakers, and he knows that he loves their sound. Do we think the difference in sound quality would be worth it to replace all of his Yamo speakers in favor of KEF? Can I say no? I think I want to say no.
I mean, that's my inclination. The one thing I would say is that if you were considering something like the R series, again, in the gloss white finish, like everything in this room is gloss white now, and they have that, like, this is a room where KEF's super square 90-degree angle cabinets, like, they're going to look good in this room, because that's what this room already is square white 90-degree angles, except for the ceiling, which gives it this amazing look. So in an aesthetic sense.
And then that's why the couch looks so good, too, is because it's this big curved couch thing, which totally stands out. So in
an aesthetic sense, I think something like gloss white KEF speakers could look spectacular in here. And they do have the type of wall mountable speakers that could go right on that beam on the ceiling and above the entryway and would work really well. And I'm saying you're only going to get 5 of them. You're not going to get 9 or 11 of them. So in that sense,
this is definitely a situation where I would buy something based on looks, because there's just so much going on here, and the sound quality. I mean, we're talking about so many compromises for sound quality because of aesthetics, and I've got no problems with it. I just can't say it strongly enough. This is not an insult. This is like, if you gave me this room and said, make it sound good, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. This place is amazing. I'm not going to make it sound good.
Like, to me,
I have to fill the ceiling with insulation. Have you lost your mind?
Like, I think the Yamo speakers look nice in and of themselves, but like skinny black towers in here, I'm like, no, it doesn't work with the aesthetics of this room at at all. Nothing else in this room looks like that. So purely aesthetics alone. And then you already know you love the Kef sound, which, believe me, I'm in agreement there. So in that sense,
especially if you're going for the R series, for sure.
Yeah. In that sense, I could get on board with that, not just because of the sound, but because it also works in other ways.
Yeah, it would have that. You would have to, if you're fine with them being black towers on either side of this. I mean, I've been like, so the Bang & Olufsen people, when I was out there, they took us out to the news people who were there, the journalists. I guess I was considering a journalist back then. They took us to like the Bang & Olufsen traditional home, like the farm where they started, right? And it was this old, traditional farmhouse with Bang & Olufsen crap all over it. And I love Bang & Olufsen. I mean, I love the way it looks, but it looks so out of place in there. And putting a black tower, a Yamo Tower, in this room seems a little sacrilegious to me. So I could totally get behind buying something white just because it was white, and making sure you get something that you like the way it sounds is also important. The concentric driver configuration of the Kefs would also not be a bad mix for this type of room where we're probably dealing with some highly reflective.
And they have the angle wall mountable type that would work really well for the surround speaker places. So it all comes up working really well. I mean, if somebody walks into this room and they see those Kef gloss white speakers and some gloss white subwoofers in the positions we said, they're gonna be like, it looks like these speakers were custom made for this room.
Yeah,
it's
for the
totally
space,
gonna work.
Assuming that the renderings we're seeing, because they look more like renderings than pictures, are accurate as far as with the color. I mean, he may want to paint the whole thing pink. We don't know. So for running speaker wire connections, is there anything he should do to try and make those wire runs future-proof? For example, do we think most speakers will eventually be self-powered and make use of Ethernet connections instead of traditional speaker wire? Dude, do not overthink that. Just put... I mean, if you really want to be crazy, you can get 12 gauge wire and run 12 gauge wire to this stuff. Or if you really want to be crazy, you could run 10 gauge wire and risk not being able to terminate it at, bare wire connection because it's too thick.
I mean, since I'm saying that, I mean, first of all, we've greatly simplified your setup. So, I mean, the speaker wire running to your front speakers shouldn't be a gigantic problem unless you're for some reason going to put your gear in some really strange place, but you've got this whole area of the corner that I think you can have an equipment stand somewhere there. So that speaker wire is like nothing here nor there. So it's really only the two surround speakers, and I would suggest strongly considering some ghost wire, the flat speaker wire that you can adhere, because it's self-adhesive, adhere to your walls to get to the two surround positions that I'm suggesting, because it looks like he could go in between the ceiling rafters and like actually behind those horizontal wooden slats. If it's completely flat speaker wire, I think that's doable. I don't know, it might not be, but in any case, I think ghost wire, flat speaker wire to get to those two positions makes sense. But other than that, like, no, don't worry about future speakers being self-powered Ethernet driven. Like, no, speakers and amplifiers are going to be around for a long time to come.
Gloss white Kef speakers and put them in here. They're going to be there until that they fall off the ceiling. So it's been 2 hours, but we're going to do one more because it's a single question, and Rob's going to answer it, and then we can go on with our lives. So Chris is the fellow who has a TV in his bedroom that is a mere inches from his face right beside his bed since he is visually impaired. He's been using a 24-inch Samsung TV from several years ago. He's feeling like it's showing its age now. He uses his Apple TV 4K a lot, and he'd like to experience 4K and HDR. And I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but it seems like upgrading for somebody who has a visual impairment. I'm glad that you're wanting to upgrade and that you're wanting to experience this. I'm just wondering how that works. I mean,
the 4K probably not, but HDR is certainly still going to be visible.
Sure, and maybe HDR. That could really that could be the thing that makes the difference for him, is the fact that there's going to be these brightness differences that are something that he's going to be able to pick out a lot more readily than maybe he would have before. So, I think this is a use case where HDR, the importance of HDR really comes to the forefront. There don't seem to be any high-quality TVs in small sizes these days. He was thinking a 27-inch would be perfect, but any normal TVs that small are low resolution, no HDR, and pretty crappy-looking LCDs. So what about a computer monitor? He's got a separate surround sound system, so audio side of things is no problem, and there certainly appear to be quite a few 27-inch computer monitors that can do, well, at least say they can do 4K and HDR. Is there any reason to avoid using a computer monitor for this application? And if not, is there a particular monitor... Man, it's getting late. We would suggest for him. So I had this come up recently when I was randomly talking to a guy who was complaining that he had bought a TV that wasn't a TV.
Right.
I'm like, what do you mean?
Bought a monitor.
Yeah, he bought a monitor.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. It
No
has
speakers,
speakers,
no
but doesn't have
tuner.
a tuner. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't even have speakers. Sometimes they do. Dog, what are you doing? So, is there a reason why you shouldn't use a monitor for a display? Well, a lot of times, they're built simply, to do text and other things very, very brightly, and they're not as accurate
Mm,
as
mm.
TVs can be. So that's one of the things we're going to be concerned about when Rob gives you his recommendations, since I clearly have no idea what I'm talking about. But that's what we're going to be worried about more than anything. A lot of times they have a bunch of features that you're never going to use, like all the different refresh rates and things, and the ability to change to take in a bunch of different types of inputs that you're never going to use, like RGB straight or DVI or something like that, display port. But these are sort of the things that we'd be concerned about, and local dimming too. That's
Mhm.
not necessarily something that's going to be standard on a monitor. So we're going to have to look for a pretty special monitor, I would think, if we're going to be able to give you one that is that will do everything you want to do and still be a good display for you.
Right.
So what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, so what I want to warn everyone, Chris included, but everybody, is that when it comes to computer monitors, in one way, thankfully, VESA, the VESA, the same group where you see the VESA
Right.
mounting, the standardized
Yeah.
mounting, they came up with a standardization for computer monitors for HDR. They call it display HDR for computer monitors, and they gave different numbers. They gave HDR 400, 500, 600, 1000, 1400, and now they have one specifically for OLEDs that they call display HDR True Black, because OLEDs can do True Black and LCDs can't. But they've got these specifications. Now, the problem is that a ton of HDR, so-called display HDR computer monitors, including the ones that Chris linked to because he found a couple on Monoprice that he was like, are these any good? The vast majority are the display HDR 400 rating. And that is what I would normally call HDR compatible, but not capable. It's not just that they're only rated to 400 nits. I'm not worried about that. It's that they are 8-bit. They're not 10-bit. So it's not really a true HDR rendering, because HDR requires at least 10-bit precision so that you don't get posterization and banding. It is barely more than standard color. It's barely more than Rec 709 color. It's technically wider, so they get to call it HDR, but it's really not the DCI color that you're hoping for. And the display HDR 400 displays do not have to have local dimming. They can be just a regular backlight or edge lit. None of these things are good. None of these things are what you want. And unfortunately, that is the majority of display HDR computer monitors. You want one that is at least display HDR 600 or higher. I mean, 1000 would be great, but those are expensive and there are very, very few of them. But there's a reasonable number of display HDR 600 displays, and that's where I'm going to point you. The reason I'm willing to do that is because one of the Monoprice displays that he sent to me as a link asking if it was any good, it was display HDR 400, but the price was over $400. So I'm like, well, if you're considering that, then we can get you something in that price range that'll work here. What I'm going to say is, because you want this to be a TV and not just a computer monitor, I want you to get one with a VA panel, a vertically aligned LCD panel. Those are the ones that have inherently better black levels, inherently better contrast, as long as you're viewing them straight on, but we know he's not viewing his from the sides. So the IPS panels that most of these don't have as good black levels, don't have as high native contrast. But I want you to get a VA panel, I want you to get local dimming, and I want you to get an HDR 600. So Samsung is going to be the answer. They have a model called the CHG70 that on Amazon you can get for $400. So it's in a price range that I think he's willing to consider. It's the size he wanted. It's all the features I want you to have. The one weird thing is that it's curved. It's a very mild curve, but it is a curved display, but we know he's like practically nose to screen the way that he views it. I genuinely believe in this instance the curve will not be a problem. So it's a little weird that it's slightly curved, but it's okay. It has HDMI inputs. I mean, it has DisplayPort as well, but it has HDMI inputs. They are normal HDMI 2.0 inputs. So it'll work with your normal sources. To me, it checks all the boxes: Samsung, CHG70, and the 27-inch size.
There you go. All right, who do we have left?
We have Scott S., Damian D., scrolling down a little bit here, Nathan D., and Chris M. We'll answer you next week, gentlemen.
Got through a good chunk. So we want to thank our 108 patrons over at patreon.com. And we want to thank Chris for talking us up to SVS.
We certainly do. Patreon.com/AVRant Podcast. If you'd like to sign up, think of it as a voluntary subscription to our podcast. 108 patrons over there. Thanks so much. Do want to mention, if you come to AVRant.com, over on the right-hand side, there is a cup of coffee logo and it says support AVRant. If you want to give a one-time donation, that's how you do it. It'll take you to PayPal. And you can either use your PayPal account or just a credit card. You don't even have to sign up, and it won't keep dinging you every month. It'll be a one-time thing if you want to do that. Also, thanks to Chris M. for talking us up to SVS.
If you want to get your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do. Did I say podcast?
Yeah, you did.
It felt like I said podcast, but it didn't.
That's what I
like
heard.
Anyways.
We both might be wrong.
All right, well, let's go back to the tape. If you want to get your question answered, just ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.